Mayor Acorst,
Here.
Counselor Bergner.
Here.
Counselor Phillips,
Here.
Counselor Richards,
Here.
Counselor Crowe.
Okay, so we have an agenda. Motion for approval.
Make a motion, to approve the agenda.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make one correction, on the third page, it says 4:15 city council regular meeting, and those minutes are for 4:08.
And one other editorial on downtown Orinoco Gold Rush Days. Item number 2, the minutes is June 1st. 6. Hearing no other comments, all those in favor with those 2 editorial comments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, signed, approved. Our public forum is next. It's a 3-minute time limit per person. The city council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names may be used. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your concerns. To address the city council during public forum, please step up to the podium, state your name and address, and fill out a form provided. Speakers will be recognized only once, and you will be timed. And we have begin speaking with the green card, which is raised by staff, and the yellow card indicates you have 30 seconds left. And the red card indicates that you have reached your 3-minute time limit and must stop. So with that, those that'd like to speak, please come forward to the podium.
And we don't have our colored cards, so if we start dancing, your time's up.
I have a timer, it'll hear the beep.
Okay. I'm Roxana Petoskey. I live at 210 East Center Street. And I'm just wondering if it's possible to get my boundary property line went through to the road that's been taken apart on First Street Southeast. My property line went into the road, and when they put the new road, I'd like to have my property back. I have a survey here, 2021, that shows where my property line goes. So if the road could go around so I get my property back, I'd really be happy.
I guess if you'll leave it with city staff, they can get back to you.
You want me to leave this? I have
You
a
have
copy.
a copy of it? Or?
Yeah.
I would take that in with.
Okay. You want me to show you where it's at?
Sure.
Right there. Where the curve is. I mean, this, it goes into the road here. I mean, obviously, everything would have to be changed, but this is, at least I get some back.
So you're just asking if the pin to be placed, or what are you asking?
Well, no, the road to go around so that I get this property. That's where my pin is at. I mean, now it's not, it's been tore out of there, but the specifics of it, yeah.
Is that project related, Joe?
It is from the standpoint of, we're reconstructing that street. It looks like the street based on the drawing, the street encroaches on private property. The pre-construction.
When I used to live there, there used to be a stump right in the corner of it. So the car didn't keep kind of making the corner shorter and shorter. I suppose the tree rotted off now.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. We'll take a look at it. Staff will get back with you, or city engineer. Anybody else would like to speak to the public forum?
My name is Clint Ornseth. I live at 105 3rd Street Southwest. Just regarding the follow-up on the 115 Southwest Address. Property. As far as what's gonna be done to it. Or if anything's planned to be done to it.
I'm sorry,
Just wondering if anybody had any plans as far as what's gonna happen to the place. It needs to be condemned, if you ask me.
at one, was it 115 or 105?
That's the one that was on the agenda last week. And I think.
City staff is working with the property owner.
Is there a timeframe on? This finished, that's been there for 17 years and nothing's changed.
I'm not aware of a specific time frame. I know that the city staff is working with the lady right now, but it is, does have our attention, that's for sure, no doubt.
And thank you.
So Clint, there is something on the agenda for tonight, a status update.
Right.
So you know, if you can hang around, you'll hear it, otherwise there's your recording.
Yeah, I'll catch you on recording.
Okay.
And Clint, if I could just ask a question. So would you agree, though, that the grounds, the area outside the house has been significantly improved and the fence has been helpful in separating from your property view?
That's the only thing new over there. Everything else. It's all the same.
I thought a lot of the the treasures out in the yard on the front end side had been.
I drive by it every day and I haven't seen any change.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes,
I'm Tina Schmidt. I'm at 145 Third Street Southwest. I'm on the west side of 115 Third Street Southwest. And I will tell you that the clutter has not improved. Everything got shifted back in the back corner right along my property line. There is a family of raccoons living in that home. There is a garage door that's not closed and there's vermin in and out. It's a mosquito haven, it's unhealthy, and it is dangerous. And when you guys sit around and talk for an hour about a dangerous intersection, this house is 100 yards away. And people walk through there, you know, the Frisbee Park across the street, and unfortunately, Joe's project has minimized that this year, but it's an active park and people walk through that property because it's abandoned. It looks demolished and abandoned. And it's unhealthy and it's unsafe. And I really hope you guys choose to do something to get rid of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question for you. So did I hear it right? There are people walking through it?
Yes. And there's a hole in that yard with a lawn chair over it. I don't know where the hole goes to. I don't know what it's for. But
Is
it's,
it deep? Is it small?
I think Randy stuck something down there and couldn't reach the bottom.
Okay.
So heaven forbid Charlie run through there and disappear on us.
Walking through the property or the structures or,
Just nosing around.
oh,
I mean, there's nobody, other than on Sunday afternoon, there's nobody there. They come in on Sundays, they throw some stuff around, mow the lawn and leave.
thank you.
is there anybody else that'd like to speak in public forum? The second call for public hearing, public forum, I should say. And third and final call for public forum. Seeing that, we'll close public forum at 6:41. Next item on the agenda is a presentation from Smith Schaefer about the 2022 audit. Andrew? If you're gonna move the podium over so it's more centered for addressing, that's up to you.
I can talk loud. Let me know. I do have extra copies. I handed. Anybody interested?
Thanks for having me tonight. I am Andrew Floody with Smith Schaefer, and we are contracted to perform the audit for the city of Orinoco for the year ended December 31st, 2022. Tonight, we will walk through the PowerPoint as they have done in the past. Everything out of this PowerPoint comes directly out of the audited financial statements that I also did hand out to the council members. And there are some extra copies I gave you, some in that box. They're not going, people are always very disappointed when there's no in the box, but it's just financial statement. So with that said, we'll kind of walk through here. So on the first page there, as we flip on, our audit opinion is a clean, unmodified opinion, which means we believe everything is fairly clean and consistent. Yeah. It is the highest level of assurance that you can receive on a financial statement. It is reasonable, not absolute assurance that the financial statements are free from material in the statement, as we do not look at every single transaction that occurred throughout the year. With that said, we do take a risk-based approach and make selections based off those perceived risks, and any supporting documentation that was requested from the city staff was provided to us. So the city's accounting records throughout the year were in good standing, even with the transition through the administrator, the records were able to be provided to us that we needed for our supporting documentation. For the financial statements, as I mentioned, we will not walk through those tonight. We did sit down with city staff on June 29th and went through them in a more line by line detail. So everything that we talked about at that meeting comes directly out of the audited financial statement and the PowerPoint. And then the city staff did provide the management discussion and analysis back to us. Included in the audit is also opinion on Minnesota legal compliance. We did not note any exceptions in those testings. There's about 7 different categories: conflict of interest, the public indebtedness, deposits of public funds, contract TIFs, and then claims and disbursement. Management and auditor responsibility letter. So I also did hand out the one letter. The other letter is included in the financial statement. As this year, you are required to do a yellow book audit, or with in accordance with government auditing standards, because of your PFA loans are requiring that type of audit. It is just a little bit higher level of assurance. So if we select any federal funds, there's some additional testing that requires us to be done. And then the yellow book audit does also require the city to prepare their own financial statements. So that is the finding that we have this year, is the limited number of people in the office for the accounting functions, and then also the preparation of the financial statements. So that is a new finding this year, just due to those PFA loans require a little bit higher level of assurance on the audit than we have in the past. On slide 3, then we do talk about your governmental funds there. They're the general fund, 2 special revenue funds, 5 debt service funds in this year. 3 of those being new related to the ongoing project, 2 capital project funds, and 1 utility fund at this time before the sewer is up and running for the 2023 year. Next, we just give a brief update on how the general fund operations went. So on the far right there, the 2022 numbers, the green is going to be your revenues, the orange is your expenditures, and the blue is going to be your.
What page are you on? Can you help us reference? You're going kind of fast.
4 in this.
No, this, you guys, you're in the wrong thing.
PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. I think we're-
I'm kind of going, where?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Counselor Gross.
Alright, so page 4 on the PowerPoint, sorry about that. On the far right, we have the green is gonna be your revenues, your orange is your expenditures, the blue is your transfers, and the yellow is your change in fund balance for the general fund. So the general fund operations had positive operations about 90,000 this year. That is the yellow on the far right. The green, you can see your revenues are down about 245,000. The majority of that being down is from grants from the flood in the prior years that was not required in the current year. So the emerging flood grants about 370,000 being down. Expenditures also related to those flood control expenditures are down. So your actual operating expenditures are down. The blue is $100,000 transfer of property taxes into your capital improvement fund, the 425 fund, to fund those operations. And you still had positive operations in your general fund of about 90,000. Looking ahead to page 6, we look at just your property taxes. So the general tax levy represents, I'm going to say 56%. I know it says 4 there first. There was that 22 million of PFA grants that were received for the project ongoing, and skewed all your historical numbers. So we're going to go excluding your PFA grants. About 56% of the total governmental revenues coming into the city are from property taxes. So the city is heavily relied on the taxpayers to fund operations. Total collections about 920,000, up about 20,000 from the prior year. The other main funding source that the city typically has is from the state, is your local government aid. About 91,000. You receive the same amount on page 7 as you did in the prior year, which equals about 6% of your governmental revenues coming in. And then in the 2023, the LGA or local government aid is actually decreasing to about 84,000. So a little bit less coming in from the state in the current 2023 year. Slide 8, then we just referenced the two categories that we talked about, the property taxes and the local government aid as the main funding sources for the city. With that said, you can see that gap is widening. The property taxes are having to be increased for increasing costs. Local government aid has remained relatively flat. We're currently about 827,000 more in property taxes than you do in local government aid, as that gap continues to widen as everything is getting more expensive and costs are increasing. Flipping ahead then to general government expenditures on slide 10. So we moved into the expenditures here. So the general government is the mayor, council, finance administration, elections, professional services, and economic development. We can see the increase of about 125,000 in the current year. Some of this is due to changing coding, the different administration running and some of those expenditures. Sometimes the allocations do get a little bit changed on salary allocations and that. So hopefully we can get a little bit more skewed or a little bit more historical data on there. So the main increases there was salaries were up about 80,000, including benefits and taxes. Technology costs, some training on the new staff on that, and then some additional professional fees in the current year. Public safety on slide 11, spent about 285,000 in the current year. This is police protection, fire protection, building inspection, planning and zoning, first responders and emergency operations center. So total increase about 82,000 in the current year. Mainly due to some additional turnout gear purchased by the fire department, engineering fees or the various paths and trails. Also included in there, building inspections were up about 10,000 as there was more buildings going on. Fire in total was up about 30,000, and most of that was related to the additional turnout gear. Planning and zoning, as that's where those trail expenditures were falling, about 35,000 in the increase there.
So the question on the Zumbo River, what are those, that's meant to be an in and out account.
Planning and zoning.
So the Zumbro River Water Trail, that was we collected funding from 4 counties, and then we expend that out as we get the SEH invoices.
Yeah.
But have we received from all 4 counties?
Oh, well, not all 4 of them. No, we're still waiting for some, but the funding we have to support SEH has come from the counties, from their fiscal budgets to us.
Yeah.
So why would that be part of our, or maybe that's,
It's still an expenditure. It's
still
gonna be a revenue coming in, an expenditure going out.
so it's on the revenue side as well.
Correct.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yep.
The trail expenditures, did you say it's P and Z expense?
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
It's, was part of
In-
reimbursable
You're
engineering.
gonna get
expense.
reimbursed, you're gonna get it back, and that's the same general fund,
Okay.
so it's. Just needed a home and that's where it's
Where
landed.
it landed, yeah. No, that's probably.
And I would just add too on page 10, remember we had two full-time employees that left last year, and we had significant payouts out there, PPO and comp and stuff.
All right, on slide 12 then, we get into your public works. So the public works currently is where the home is for the wastewater treatment facility is getting until that fund gets set up. So spent about a little over 23 million in the current year on the facility. On the blue on the very bottom there, you can see your actual operating expenditures for the public works funds, but with 254,000 compared to 250,000 the prior year. So pretty consistent operations. Spent a little bit more on snow removal, was up in the current year.
Yeah, you can almost see the blue there.
I'll take that out next year and we'll be able to see the blue again. Just for this year, I'm left it in. On slide 13 then is your culture and recreation expenditure for the community center, parks and recreation, and Gold Rush. falls in this category, so spent just under 165,000 in the current year. Total decrease of about 2,500, so pretty consistent operations. Operating expenditures increased by about 4,000 and the lighter blue on the bottom there, most of that was related to utilities. As just as the price of natural gas has increased. On slide 14, then we just look at your total governmental expenditures excluding your capital outlay. So as we mentioned, we just already did talk about these categories. You can see the highest is the general government in the current year, followed by public works, and public safety. On slide 16, we get into the reserves for the general fund. So the orange, your yellow, golden bar we'll go with is gonna be your unassigned fund balance on slide 16. The green is your total expenditures in the general fund. So one metric that people use to determine the health of the general fund balance is if you take your total unassigned fund balance and divide it by your total current year expenditures to get a percentage of how much of your expenditures are on hand. You're at about 115% of the current year. So the general fund does have a healthy balance in the current fund, up from about 86% in the prior year. Last year, just with those expenditures being down for the flood control in the general. On slide 17 then is the water and sewer improvement fund balance. So it is at a deficit, and a lot of this is just timing of when you are requesting those draws coming in from the PFA, as those are expected to be made whole as we go forward, as more loans have been drawn against those. On slide 18 then is your 425, your capital improvement fund, has a fund balance of about 860,000. Total expenditures were about 73,000 in the current year. There was a public works truck purchase out of there, and then some excavating as well coming out of that. As well, so this fund is funded by some gambling transfers and then gambling donations, and then the $100,000 transfer coming in from the general fund for their share of the property taxes collected. So added about 30,000 to their fund balance at about 861,000. On slide 19, then the two.
On the gold rush. So those would have been donations to the city for National Night Out and fireworks. These are donations that Gold Rush gives to the city.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, there's about $1,500 in total in that Golden Rush fund of those donations that's been paid to the city. On slide 19 there, so that's the first column there is the Gold Rush, and then the TIF fund has about 24,000 as we've been keeping up with those payments to the developer for the project. On slide 21, then we get into the debt service fund. So there is 5 debt service funds out not standing currently for the governmental funds. The 2013A has about 186,000 left to be paid on. It's paid off in 2029. The 2017A is paid off in 2025 and has 47,000. And then the 3 new ones that were issued this year, the only draws have been very little. Most of that funding coming in from the PFA has been grant funded so far. But the 2022A has about 26,000 of loans that has received that will need to be repaid. And by 2052, about 8,000 on the 2022B and about 5,000 on the 2022C. Both those are paid off in 2042. So and they're at very low interest rates at 1 and 1. On slide 22, then there is one other PFA loan that has been outstanding in the water fund. Paid off in 2029, about 464,000. Slide 24, then we get into your water utility operations. So the green is going to be your revenues coming in. So these are your charges for service. There's some non-operating revenues, some interest and some other charges coming in. The gold is what is going to be your operating expenditures. And on top of that is the darker green is your depreciation. We separate out the depreciation just as it is an expense, but it's not necessarily cash going out the door. So we want to make sure that our revenues are covering the cash going out. So they did cover your operating. We did see an increase in your expenses in the current year of about 32,000. There are some salaries and some higher repairs going into the water fund. So the total revenue is about 218,000, which was pretty consistent with the prior year. Operating expenditures excluding depreciation was 143,000. So you're at about a positive 7,500 without depreciation. And then the net loss, including depreciation, of about 57,000. But if you look on slide 25, then the green is gonna be your cash. So your cash position did increase to about 124,000, up about 7,000. So even though the fund did operate at a loss, it did continue to generate positive cash, and that includes paying that 23,000 per year repayment to the general fund and the water and sewer improvement fund. So without that repayment, would have had a positive operation of about 30,000. So that fund appears to be, there was also no capital asset additions this year, so doing a little bit better than break even on the cash basis for the water utility. And then on slide 26, then just a brief summary, the general fund operations resulted in a surplus of about 91,000, bringing the total general fund balance to 1,116,000 at year end. Unassigned reserves of 1,171,000 equal 115% of the current year general fund expenditures. Water and sewer improvement fund has a deficit balance based on the timing of when those funds draws are being requested. The capital improvement fund has a balance of 860,000 to be used for future improvements. All debt payments were made timely. And just the water utility rates should continue to be evaluated to build reserves for future. I went through that pretty quickly. Is there any questions or anything I can clarify?
So question on the water utility fund on page 24. So this is a slide that, is it correct that the PFA follows this slide? Or the balance to make sure that we're, trying to stay above water, but we've increased our water rates in April. We're late getting it done this year, so about 3%, I think, but we also broke down other higher classes of volume users too.
Yeah.
So
We talked about that meeting. It's a little unknown with the breaking of the class structure, what's gonna be anticipated, but and then the PFA will be watching more closely once that sewer fund operation. We'll start the sewer fund and we'll move all those into the sewer fund, all that facility or all the infrastructure that's currently being built will be transferred into that fund, so they'll have some assets to it as well.
well, your audit probably didn't look at where we're at with our sewer, with our assessments that we got here in July for the first sewer assessments payment.
There was quite a bit of prepaid assessments. There's about 264,000 prepaid assessments before year end. All those are recorded in those debt service funds as they're restricted to go and pay back that debt.
And we start making those payments now. We have started them with PFA.
We're working with Anita to figure out how much we need to, because we've gotten a few additional payments in, so and that's one of the things they mentioned to Andrew on his way in was I need to sit down with him and make sure I understand that, because you've got multiple parts of this puzzle and making sure that we're allocating appropriately. So when somebody pays off an assessment, but that assessment includes water and sewer, and making sure that if they include or water, paying off a water assessment from 2009, that's got to get coded appropriately versus the sewer in here. So we'll, and trying to get ahead of that game before the 2023 audit, because we don't want as many journal entries as we've had to have.
So, okay. So definitely we need, because of the dollar volume we're talking about with their assessments and their loan payments, do we need a mid-year audit or something like that to kind of tell us where we're at, or is it too much of a gamble to wait till July of next year to find out where we're at?
It's more just for cash flow purposes or for just city knowledge. For the prepaid, are you wondering, or just for?
No, just in general, we want to make sure we're not missing something and PFA comes around and says, you're totally missing the payments. And
no, they'll let you know. PFA is pretty particular on the prepayments that you pay off the prepaid. So on a typical non-PFA bond, if you have special assessments on a typical road project, the city just holds those special assessments until the project's paid and you make your payments. But PFA, if there's prepayments on those projects, want you to pay them back just because their interest rate is very favorable.
No, it's excellent.
And do you know, you had mentioned we were late on our water rate increases. Do you know what that equal to in terms of a dollar amount? Any idea what we're looking at?
I did not go into that.
And I'm assuming that's something that we want to put on our
Yeah. It's, the month of June was exceptionally high water usage for the city, electricity and water, so. That's gonna be. That'll generate the revenue, of course,
right.
but at the same time, we're paying a lot more for electricity too. So it's so you mentioned cash flow. Do we need to redo a cash flow analysis now that we know how many people are hooking up sewer, water? What the assessments are and kind of. We did some of this several years ago with a financial planner, Mike Babani, but we haven't really done a cash flow analysis since then.
More like a rate study or just the cash flow? I think your cash flow. PFA is gonna watch your cash flow very closely in the sewer fund for the next couple of years. Until you get all those draws and get your rates set to make sure you're cash flow positive.
So where I'm going with my comment is where are we really gonna have to use CIP money to help subsidize our payments? When will we be able to determine that? How do we determine that?
You shouldn't, did PFA, I'm sure did they give you a rate structure on how much to increase or what to charge?
Well, that was part of your Mike Bubani's work, right?
Right.
And in determining that rate structure initially.
Yeah.
And I think you were conservative on
Right.
how many users we were gonna add per year.
Yeah.
So,
10 or something like that. Really.
yeah, so, and I have reached out to Mike on that, because we were talking about the TIF reporting that's coming due, and so we'll be following up on that next.
Okay, I think that'd be good to.
Yeah.
Do a cash flow,
Mike would does more of those analysis, so.
spits them out like.
So speaking of the CIP, you mentioned the gambling donations. Is there a specific? You know what I'm gonna ask.
Department, yeah,
Right.
I do, and that's the frustration is
That's
that
the question.
it gets everything, capital improvement gets put in that
Yeah,
one fund and it's not designated by. Like every year, we allocate $100,000 to go to CIP, but it's not determined, okay, so 20,000 of that's gonna be for public works, 30,000 is for fire department, so there isn't that kind of breakdown.
mhm.
It's just a matter of constantly looking at where did the money come from, and that $100,000 is not dedicated. Is probably the word I should use.
In the past, we've had CIP planning sessions with Mike Babani. Been several years since we've had one. And it might be good to have another one of those or something to look at, I guess, but.
Well, and there are tools out there that model how you want to do that.
That's in the city. I mean, you can designate, as you were saying, 25 for each of the main categories, and then if one gets higher, we can still, at council's discretion to reallocate. The majority of that's just the fire, that comes in, the gambling needs to stick with the fire, but that's, 7,000 of 100,000 coming in, so it's not quite a large portion of that.
Comments for Andrew? Thanks for your time.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll follow up.
we're having. Okay,
Can I just say that Renee and I both sigh of relief. Because this really is, last year was her first time really getting knee deep in it. And for me, there are a lot of changes that we wanted to make, and it's time consuming, and I'm very happy with how the city is looking.
good, thank you. Yeah, it is a very time consuming, painstaking. But hopefully we learned something, how we can improve the system for next year.
Yep.
All right. There's articles. And a law enforcement report, in your packet. Sergeant Red is off. He's not working today, so he will be able to join us soon. Water and sewer. Joe's going to give us an update on treatment plant first.
Yeah, lots going on at the treatment plant. The facility is really starting to take shape. If you look at the sewer and water committee meetings, you kind of get and the monthly report that we issue to the council and the MPCA, you really get a flavor of what's going on. But we're at the point where site improvements are going in, so streetlights are being placed, concrete walk and pads are being poured. I think the backup generator got set today or yesterday, transformers in. They'll be looking, and topsoil's been spread in a lot of areas. They'll be looking to start to prep for paving. They continue to work on miscellaneous process and equipment components out there. But the site's really coming together. I think over the next month, we'll probably see paving. We'll probably see fencing. The other kind of update there is obviously on the electrical. That is the big thing that we continue to watch. So we had a construction coordination meeting last week, or was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And so the machine control centers, the MCC components, which are different than the switch gear that we've been waiting on, but they were supposed to come in on July 7th. They did not come in. They are now promised July, I think, 30th. And so that delay impacts the electrician in terms of there's a lot of wiring that needs to get done. So that backs things up a little bit, but we're still continuing to plan to begin commissioning maybe mid-September with wastewater treatment facility operations starting up in mid to late October. That's still the plan. We're still planning to utilize those temp electric panels. Those pieces are continuing to move forward. And the electricians are out there basically pre-wiring everything that they can pre-wire, but they have a lot to work to do. And when the MCC stuff, equipment comes in and the temporary wiring needs to get done, in addition to the lift station wirings and all, there's a lot of electrical work that needs to be done yet at this point. So that's really the critical path item, but they are making progress. We'll cross our fingers that the MCC equipment from Allen Bradley does come in at the end of July, like it's most recently been promised. We'll see. I guess I was guardedly optimistic, but maybe that's a fatal flaw too. Other things to kind of just note. We do have RFP for the wastewater treatment facility operations out with, well, it was last Wednesday. In fact, we had a tour of the facility. We had a couple contract operators come to the site and tour the site and ask questions, and so they're moving forward. We're expecting that they will submit proposals. The proposals are due on July 31st, and they would be evaluated based on the schedule. Schedule is in the sewer and water committee or in the sewer water meeting notes if you're interested. But the schedule for interviews is August 8th and 9th. That is this, August 8th is a traditional sewer and water committee meeting. At that meeting, we kind of thought that it would be a good idea if council wants to be present, we might entertain a joint meeting there, if you wish. It's an important job and it's important to have input and to be part of those interviews and take that in, I think is important. So, you know, if that's something that council wishes to do, I think staff would probably set that up, correct?
Yes.
And then,
Is it 2 days or depending, you said 8, 9? Why the 2 dates?
depending on their availability and how many people submit.
It's not meant to be a 2-day event, it's just one or the other days.
Well, it could be a 2-day event. We'll hopefully get
Oh, yeah.
get them done on the 8th, but you know, we didn't know how many proposals we get at this point. We're anticipating 2.
Mhm.
So hopefully we can do them the same night, but you know, those interviews probably are gonna be an hour and 15-minute long each, I would guess, or at least an hour.
Yep.
And so, you know, it gets to be a long night too, so it kind of depends on what you guys wanna do.
Thanks.
And then we're anticipating making a selection of the preferred contractor at the August meeting. That meeting's August 15th, and I know that's right in the midst of Gold Rush, but my guess is you're gonna have a pretty good idea on who you favor after those interviews and after looking at the proposals. So that's the next opportunity, and then we'll select that individual and then draft a contract, and there'll be some back and forth on that with the city attorney and city staff, but then we'd have a special council meeting to award the contract formally to them, execute the contract on the 5th of September, and then hopefully start service within the next couple of weeks. So that's the big picture schedule there. I thought it was important to go through, and I'm sure you guys all saw pieces of that, but that's.
And that was on page 7 of your packet, in the minutes.
In the meeting.
But yeah.
Absolutely.
And I would just add, Joe, that just for council's information, we did distribute 4 RFQ packets. And we had 2 show up for one withdrew and said they wouldn't be submitting. The third one was. It's just, yeah, that was 2 showed up, 2 showed up, 1 pulled out, and the other one is just non-responsive. So, and we can talk about that when we're doing as a prelude to the interviews too, but this is not one of those situations where it's price alone that determines this. It's, you know, a responsive bid and
Quality of the
those kind of
staff and
things. So, yeah,
track record and references.
so they really are, it's important to have as many people, in my view, as Joe's as well, that we have as many people representing the city and our interests in addition to the water and sewer committee, but council as well.
Because you're gonna be asked to sign at least a 3-year contract with these folks. And
So do you feel comfortable, Joe, that with the whole process, by the time we get someone on, they'll be good to go by the time we go live, hit the ground running?
yeah, I think so. All the timelines are tight. But they do have, you know, they got a 30, I think they had 30 to 31 days to respond to the RFP. And, you know, if you look at the schedule, it's every week something has to happen. There's dominoes that have to fall, right? But we just need to be on top of it. And I'm not hearing from the respondents that they can't make that happen. You know, in the short term, I would expect that they'll have some interim staffing, you know, that people don't just have operators sitting around, right? So they'll be staffing up to make that happen and probably utilizing existing staff from other facilities to provide coverage until they are able to facilitate a permanent solution.
Thanks.
As always, you want to come out to the treatment facility, give me or Jeff a call. You it's changing a lot.
Looks great.
Any questions on the treatment facility or things we should talk about? All right, moving on.
Oh, I have one. This kind of relates to security.
Yeah.
We talked about the fence
Yep,
and control about who can go through the fence and keys and everything, but we're still talking about a camera system possibly too. Is that correct? You're looking at that contract or
Right,
getting quotes, I should say?
right, right.
Okay.
Because that was in last month's packet. There was that report on public water supply from MDH. One of the things they cited was security for our,
Wells and well houses. plus-
yes, thank you. So those kind of things, and then this obviously is certainly something that we wanna make sure is secure to the extent that we possibly can.
But there wasn't funding for this, for security cameras, was there?
we didn't
Fence.
include that in the project yet. So you have a fence. And the fence has a system where you basically punch in a code to gain access. And then
That's
of course,
only at that access point.
right, the rest of the facility is fenced. And then, of course, there's locks at all the buildings.
It would be nice to have a camera system for all of our buildings and our facilities that's consistent. So I think if we do move forward with that there, we should also implement it here. And at the city garage and.
That's what-
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah, and that's what Renee and I were meeting with people about is this building, the shop, the
Fire hall.
fire hall, and out at the public works. I
We need
mean,
to have it at
the
water
wastewater
storage
treatment
center.
facility. And only as a result of reading that report last month, did I happen upon these other sites that we do have alarms at those stations, but the mayor and I talked about, even something that will let you know access, the door's been opened or that sort of thing
Left open and closed, yeah.
yeah. So, yes, there's more to think about though, when you just think, cameras.
mhm.
There was a resident notice that went out last Friday. There'll probably be another one late this week or early next week. In terms of the contract 2 and 3 Fitzgerald, there's obviously lots of activity going on. On July 10th, Ellingson moved into town with a pretty healthy sized contingent to start installing grinder stations and directional drilling, force main and water services on private property. It does look like a lot of residents have contracted with them to have their water services pulled in conjunction with their sewer services on private property. And that does seem to be working out fairly well, based on early returns of what we're kind of seeing out there. So I think that's positive. And so they're installing grinder stations. We're not making any connections yet. Obviously, the treatment facility has to be live before any of that can start, but this is some of the work that can get done at this point in time. And so they're drilling the holes, they're setting the grinder stations, and then they're connecting to the curb stop, and the curb stops at the property line, directional drilling that water and or sewer, and if they contracted the water out to the grinder station. They aren't making those connections yet. They will this fall after the treatment facility gets live. They'll come back in. They'll connect that force main to the grinder station. They'll connect the house to the grinder station, and then they'll pump and abandon the septic tank. So, and then of course restore the yard. So, fair amount of work to go there, but they're making progress. And actually, they're moving fairly quickly.
How long do they have, I mean, will winter deter a lot of that work? For getting the grinder stations connected to.
It will to some extent. I mean, as long as there's not hard frost in the ground, then they will continue to work. Some winters, that's,
Right.
you know, Thanksgiving, and some winters, that's Christmas. But we know it will come. So it really is a function of will they get done is when will they be able to start tying those over? When does the treatment facility become
Right.
live, right?
Right.
That's the key, and the treatment facility will become live. The key path there is the MCC, the machine control centers,
Alright.
that are the brains of the operation there that power that. So that equipment has to come in and then get installed, and those dominoes all have to fall. So Fitzgerald continues to work. The deepest excavation is on First Avenue. You remember if they started way down by the lift station, well, they're all the way up to Fourth Street at this point. So they're almost done with First Avenue sanitary sewer. That's the deepest sanitary sewer on the job. So in instances, they were between 15 and over 20 feet deep. If you were out there and looked at that trench, it's a big trench, deep trench, and it's in beautiful sands, which are great to dig in, but the trench walls don't stay up with that. So they're pulling a single, or in some cases, double boxes through that trench, and with all the crossings, the gas and the water, you know, that it's time consuming and difficult. So that component is moving. They're starting to head west down Fourth Street very soon. And of course, they're pulling back and pulling sewer services to the individual properties when they can. And they're also working, well, right out by the Methodist Church on the north side there. I believe that's First Street. And then heading up that half alley too. So that's in progress. And then the last place they're working is on Fifth Street Southwest. There's some sanitary sewer and water main that needs to be pulled down that street. That is a difficult area because access, there is none. It's a dead end street and the street's very tight. The right of way is tight. And so that's difficult. And then to compound the complexity there, it's really wet.
Wait.
Yes, yeah. So they're just starting on that. I suspect that will be kind of a slow going too, but they'll continue to push on that. I mentioned before the meeting that there was a water main hit. The gas company was directional drilling a gas main up by Gas and Go and drilled through a 12-inch water main. And so Fitzgerald is up there fixing that now, kind of on an emergency basis, and I would suggest that's probably where Kane is.
Joe, I have one quick question for you. When you mentioned restoring the yard, it kind of jogged my memory. I've had a couple residents ask about the overseeding or the hydro seeding. Is there any requirement in terms of what they're using? Because people are complaining that it's weeds. And
Yeah, there is a requirement. So we specify a MnDOT seed mix. So they aren't seeding weeds. The weeds are voluntary. They were either in the soil or blew in. They're not part of the seed mix. The seed mix is a certified MnDOT mix. And one of the things that helps weed control is mowing. And so to knock down those weeds and really get rid of them, so the grass and the seed can germinate and get some sun and not have to fight for water. Obviously, the weather has been frankly horrible in terms of growing grass. But I can also say that there is a standard that they do need to meet in terms of turf establishment, and that's essentially 70% coverage. Again, we use a MnDOT spec there, and it's there's criteria that need to be met, and if it's met, they'll need to overseed it. Undoubtedly, this year, there are going to be significant areas that need to be overseeded, or in some cases, maybe even just completely reworked and reseeded because it's so hot and so dry. So that is a challenge. So Minnesota Avenue was paved the last couple days, along with a number of other patches. through town, which is good. Obviously, that's been kind of well, significant inconvenience for everybody as those 4 utility crossings were completed over the last 2 weeks, and then the road was reconstructed and repaved here. And opened up. Fortunately, I think we talked about having that closed through the 19th. They beat that by a day, which, given all the good weather, I guess it's kind of to be expected. But they continue to make progress on that. One of the other important things to note is that they are planning to reclaim the rest of the streets in downtown Orinoco that will be impacted by the project starting July 26th. And so you guys are familiar with reclaiming, what that looks like. They just, big machine comes in and grinds up the pavement, mixes it in with the rock below, and then they come back, blade it, and then roll it in. Yeah, so it's essentially a gravel road, and it's got some structure and holds up well, but you know, there are times when that will wash, or you'll get dust and the normal things that you get washboarding with gravel surfaces, especially in some of the hillier areas here in town. But the contractor is making pretty steady progress, and I have looked at their plan, and it really does look like they need to reclaim that. And then they'll start to, or will continue down Fourth Street Northeast, working from east to west. As that's the 10-inch trunk main, and then everything kind of branches off into that trunk main. So they'll continue that way. We do have a number of streets that need to be reconstructed. They're constructed through aggregate base, but they need to get additional rock and paved. One of the contractors challenges there is they ran out of rock. They're in the process of crushing more rock for that purpose. And so there's been a little bit of a delay in the paving, and it's really a function of that. They've got a source that's close that they want to crush out of, and then the hauling for them is more cost effective. And
So there is other rock, it's just a logistics,
yes,
shipping or trucking it from a different quarry.
and buying it versus crush, you know, they of course want to crush their own rock.
Yeah.
Because it's more cost effective. That's how they probably bid it. But you know, there are a number of streets that could be paved that haven't been paved. And we've been talking to them about that, and that's the feedback that we're getting at this point. So hopefully over the next month that work gets done, and we'll be able to get those paved. That's all that's on top of mind for the wastewater project. The sanitary sewer collection conveyance. Sunny, did you?
I just had a question whether either of you two did want to mention the time frame for hookup. That was a recommendation from Water and Sewer Committee.
Oh, okay, so in our discussion at our water and sewer meeting, we've had ongoing discussion, but we finally made a motion to recommend to the P and Z Commission to review 2 codes, 51.020, which is our water connection time period of 1 year that was done back in 2009. And the other ordinance is 51.021, which is a sewer connection, which is originally or currently is a 1 year from the operational date of the wastewater treatment plant. So we're recommending that basically that those 2 ordinances be reviewed by the P and Z Commission, because they are ordinances to align both dates to a 1 year time period. Which is, the sewer is 1 year right now. The water back when it was put in was 5 years, I think. So, but we just want to update both ordinances, and at the same time, review the 1 year time frame. I know we've had some feedback from our residents and public information meetings of wanting more time, 24 months. And so we can have a discussion as it comes back to council through P and Z and a public hearing. So But right now, that's the track that it's gonna take.
And Ryland, you said sewer is 1 year. What was water?
5.
5. That's
Back in 2009,
Yeah.
a 2014 date.
And so right now you have a combined sewer and water ordinance that was adopted. Oh, Mike, we did that
Utility ordinance.
2-3 years ago. And we're kind of just saying there are some discrepancies within that, you know, obviously it wasn't intended that the sewer and water not have the same date. It was intended, I think it was an oversight. But there's probably a handful of other little things that probably need to be looked at by staff or Mike or I to kind of make sure that you know, we're on task for where we need to go at this point in time.
And one of the things that came out at the committee meeting as well was, it's not like everyone is gonna have the same starting date for that year period. There, it's gonna be gradual based on when their notice.
So, and that's a good point too, Sonny's, you know, we've kind of been looking at that, and as you know, when utilities are available, we send them a notice, and that starts a formal notice, a written notice, as the ordinance requires. But one thing that we would note is, you know, if water is available, but sewer is not available for connection, then we don't send the notice until both utilities are available.
So can I say just one thing? Mayor, may I speak?
Yes, Mike. go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if you would, I just would say that if you're going to make changes to the utility code, so we combine the water and sewer ordinances into one chapter called the utility code for simplicity and then combine everything in the same spot. If you're going to make changes to those specifically related to the sewer project, I think you should do it as soon as, you know, sooner than later. And you probably have to have 2 readings of that. So, you know, I don't know if the plan is to review it and then propose some changes. We had always talked when we drafted the original ordinance about that we're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit. We're trying to make the logical ordinance for what we think is going to happen, understanding that we would probably have to do a round of amendments. So, you know, whatever process is used to determine what needs to be amended, that should be done, you know, probably in August and brought back in September, I would think, because if the plant's going to be ready in October.
And that's the plan as far as August P and Z to look at this, so. But I agree, Mike, we need to accelerate it as much as possible. All right, thanks, Mike.
So that I don't forget, did you want to make a motion? Are you interested in having a joint meeting for this? For the water and sewer,
With the P and Z.
with council and I've moved on.
For the
Council and
wastewater treatment
wastewater.
facility operator interviews.
Oh, you're going back
for
to
the
that,
RFPs.
okay, yeah.
I thought we were done with that, sorry.
We need a motion? Or do we just agree?
Well, it's scheduled in a special meeting in effect for
It is.
council.
All because of quorum, yes. I make a motion that we special meeting, council and water and sewer committee members on or about August 8th.
Second.
And also the other date was a special meeting. I suppose it's September 5th, one we could talk about it in August. Okay, so for this one, August 8th. Thank you.
And I don't know if we want to meet a little earlier in case we have 2 interviews that night, or maybe you can just make that call, but I would say the earlier the better, because it's gonna be late night.
For the August 8th, I said on or about August 8th, so.
No, he means time,
Yeah, we need to post.
Yeah,
Like
like
6:30.
Well,
but he's
I'm
gonna say we need to.
5:30. Was thinking 5:30, I think that need to have.
5:30.
Council from 6.
5:30.
Yeah, I think it gives us an hour, yeah. Extra hour.
Just for my clarification, is that the council's meeting at 5:30 or the council and water and sewer committee?
Council, water and sewer.
I think both need to meet that way, yeah.
Do you foresee that being an issue though with the water and sewer committee members and their jobs?
Just be Dylan, right? And
It's Dylan and there's 3 or 4 of them, yeah. Paul, Dylan, Joe.
As long as we made sure they're aware.
And we just, I'd like to survey the committee, so can we, put a time as to be determined and go with that and get back to you?
Okay, and then we'll just have to know prior. to
Right,
posting.
no,
Yep.
we'll,
Yep. And that's really only August 8th, isn't that far away?
and for everybody's awareness, I will be on vacation August 26th to September 12th. So I will miss some of those meetings and the vice mayor have to take over for those meetings. Unless those dates change. But I'll be back on the evening of the 12th, so.
got you covered.
What's that?
Says I got you covered.
Okay.
Covered.
All right. Anything else, Joe?
Not unless council has questions.
Next item is a memo from Kane regarding water hydrant mapping from Stantec. Request for up to $1,000 for maps regarding the water infrastructure, new and updated mapping. So it's electronic as well.
I make a motion to accept the request from Kane for Public Works for up to $1,000 for new mapping.
Second.
Sounds like it's a very worthwhile, and we have a lot of good information now and everything being mapped out with, especially the sewer. Any other comments?
I would just add that the reason this is actually here is not so much that Kane doesn't recognize this within its threshold of doing it, but it is engaging the services of a consultant that we wanted to, for transparency purposes, wanted to make sure everybody's aware.
I agree. Good documentation. There's no other comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. If I'm missing something. This next item was an FYI, but Department of Health Public Water System application. Well, that's for the letter copper pipes.
Yeah, that was just an application that was submitted. And Joe, you can speak more to this whole.
Yeah, real quickly, EPA, after what happened in Michigan and elsewhere in the country, there's a big push to address, identify and eliminate lead services, lead water services in people's homes and to businesses. And so they've made some funding available for cities to complete inventories of lead services, both on the public mains and then beyond the curb stop and all the way into the house. And so that is a pretty huge task nationwide. And they're making some money available to it. And so we provided that information to the city. Stantec's one of a handful of consultants that have been pre-approved by the health department to do this type of work. And so there's grant dollars that help cities complete the inventory and complete the steps. There'll be more steps to this, and ultimately all the lead services in the state are to be removed and replaced. This is the first step in that process, which is a worthwhile process, but it's gonna be expensive and it's gonna take time. Fortunately, Orinoco, at least on the public side, you probably don't have any lead services, but beyond the curb stop between the house and the, you know, there's a potential for that, and it goes beyond lead services to galvanized pipe. So if you have galvanized pipe coming into your house, you would also qualify for removal and replacement. So it's a big initiative, but this is just setting us up. We've asked for the grant funds.
Yeah, I think.
And we've got till October 2024 to use those funds and make this first submittal. So be here before you know it.
So there'll be public information meetings as the grants are approved and getting out to people, or?
There is a public education component to this process. That's not crystal clear to me yet, but I know that it's part of the process. And so also going into homes and making inspections and doing tests. It sounds a lot easier than it really is. It's not easy. Especially in a lot of the older communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can tell you there were only like, what? 10, 15 questions to the application. It's a very preliminary kind of thing, if I understand it correctly, that they're kind of gauging interest on right, how many people they might have to share the money with.
Great, thank you for doing that. All right, anything that's, I think that was the last item for water and sewer. Public Works, there's a we'll use some unused funds regarding tree removal.
And I can speak to this, actually, we had asked that this actually be removed for tonight because it's speaking to the 2022 budgeted funds, not what's for 2023. And, he had mentioned that only 2756 had been expended, and in looking at the records, we saw that there was nearly 10,000 of the 12,000 in the bids. Remember the bids that were included here, total 12,000. We did spend nearly 10 last year. So he wants to pull this and we'll revisit it for 2023 with new bids and everything.
Okay, so it's
So
Table
the
that.
work that was done though, the marking of all the trees that was already completed. Is that something we paid for? Is that something Public Works did? There was a ton of marking along the
Study.
trails.
Not a study that.
No, I'm talking about like River Park trails and all the markings and tagging
Yeah.
of trees. So what?
I think that's. So the 2756, is that 2022 or is that 2023 dollars used?
2022.
Okay.
I just wanna make sure like that work, cause it's already been done. The trees are tagged. It won't stay there for another year. Are we gonna have to repay for that? To have that done again?
That one invoice that was
There's
paid
trees.
this year, that was treating some trees, if I'm not mistaken.
All I know is like the whole path on both sides, there's spray paint and orange tags on.
Yeah, there's still
Numerous.
trees to be removed. I don't think.
And there may be some additional ones since they marked them because they died.
But I mean, I just don't. I want, if it was started, I'd hate to see it not be finished and then have to pay to mark and start all over again.
Right. And but that will come out of this year's budget. And that tree removal budget line item has $20,000 in it.
Still,
So-
okay,
Yeah, so he needs to, and there's less than $1,000 of that of this year's budget spent. So he needs to, he knows he needs to get new quotes for this year. And make sure that we're picking up what wasn't finished last year and whatever we need to do this year.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, because you said that we've spent almost 10,000 of 12,000
From last year.
from last year, right? And
So
then
if
now
you're
this year
looking-
we have 20K,
Right,
so really, we have about 32K that can be used, is that,
no,
The 2022 is closed, so that's,
Okay.
those funds are,
they're gone?
they're
Okay.
gone.
and Sonny mentioned we have used $780 so far this year,
Okay.
of $20,000, so.
And if I'm not mistaken, it was injecting the trees
Yeah,
with something, so.
yeah, they
Yeah, this
just.
is the tree removal items. Okay. We'll come back to it later on. Okay, streets and roads. The letter plan of, in your page 21 of your packet regarding, finding some sign or speed indications, both northbound and southbound around the 3rd Street southeast southwest intersection. We've had the one radar over on 2nd Avenue, the other been on West Center Street. Been there quite some time. So we thought it'd be good to maybe the council's decision to collect some data along Minnesota Avenue around the 3rd Street intersection.
Can I make a comment on that? That's the thought. I mean, you had, mentioned a couple signs that there are in Minnesota, which I can see and definitely makes sense. And it was more on our discussion of what we were talking about last time. I also have another, idea for a sign that might actually help things and be much simpler for solving that whole issue that there is around the church. And that would be that on, what is it, 3rd Street Southwest. If you put right turn only at that intersection that there is where you come into Minnesota Avenue, I think that would solve the problems of everything that's going on. That way you wouldn't have to worry about anything that you'd be interfering with oncoming traffic coming up Minnesota Avenue, and it would be a matter of somebody coming out of the church just to go around the block to get back in if they needed to go the other way on Minnesota Avenue. But I thought that would really solve a lot of the problems and take care of where you wouldn't have to worry about a blind intersection or anything coming in, because you can see everything coming up Minnesota Avenue.
Also, you're,
So either right turn only or no left-hand turn, however you wanted to put it. Right there at that corner would take care of, I think, all of the issues that might be coming.
are you saying on both sides?
No, just on the
Or
one
just on
side.
the church side?
Yeah,
So on 3rd Street Southwest,
yeah, so right on the corner of the church.
right?
Yeah, so if you just turned around and said right turn only. It would take care of anything that would coming, you wouldn't have any oncoming traffic that would interfere with that. So it would eliminate any of the issues for having an accident or anything else that would be there. So either be right turn only, or you'd say no left-hand turn, however you want to put it for a sign. But I think that would really solve all the problems throughout that whole area.
Can you go straight?
Well, you could go straight. I'm just saying you would say no.
But that doesn't solve the problem then. Because
Well-
going straight is just as dangerous as
No, I don't
turning
think you
left.
would go straight.
Well, I mean, you could say right turn only.
People
Yeah,
go straight.
Yeah, just say right turn only. Well, again, it wouldn't be if they went up a block and went down. It would take care of all of the issues of having an accident there in that corner.
At the inconvenience of somebody having to drive clear around.
But I don't know how many of those people that would be there.
5th Street, 3rd, 2nd Avenue, I don't think that's.
Only one block.
Well, one other issue that we didn't really address is the fact that as we grow, there's gonna be more and more people kind of hopefully coming downtown to enjoy what we have to offer. We have a lot of people that live up in Cedar Woodlands and up in River Park, and a lot of people come through here and then they go across the road there. And like when I had little kids, we'd bike downtown all the time. And I would literally park my bike in the road so that they could go across, so I could see. So it's
I mean-
pedestrian too.
I mean,
So I think that that's good for car traffic, but when you talk about pedestrian and the thought that, well, we're going to have, again, hopefully, more things downtown and more people visiting from the communities that live a little bit out.
I just think that this would take care of the problem right now, and we'll see as the growth goes on. Right now, with what we have with the construction that's going back and forth, I just. I mean, we can gather data, but I think that this would be the simplest solution.
How do you
Well,
enforce
the
it?
idea was to see what speed traffic is there. And maybe we need to consider reducing the speed too. If everybody's violating 30 miles an hour, then we can maybe take it to the next step.
Or do we need to maybe move that 30-mile-an-hour sign up further towards Gas and Go? And then that way you'd have a more of a chance, which I want to try to solve the problem. So I'm just trying to.
Or have another one. Add one, so that we reinforce that.
Because we've also got complaints of where Thompson's overhead door is, and the people that live just north of there, of the 50 mile an hour is too fast. So we may see a 30, 40 moving out.
Which I
But the
think-
Speed data, this is just to collect speed data now, so.
Sure, no, I
So
don't know if we need it going the other way. I'm just saying if we have one coming into town. Versus going out, because I think we got a lot of data going out of town when we had it that was placed on this side of the bridge. I think getting the one that's on the other side makes sense of what's coming from Gas and Go into town. I think that would be,
Next step, yeah.
Right.
that would be the most important one to catch that one, because then we would get that speed part. But I think moving everything speed wise towards the Gas and Go and dropping it down would be a very smart thing to do for everything, because it comes up real quick.
It is, it's just enforcing it, right? Like, how do we enforce it? Do we ask them to sit? Ask
Yeah,
the
it's-
officers to sit there more. Maybe a good place to sit is the Thompson's garage. Make it a good,
Well, and I also think that your recommendation, if you really think about it, with all the development that's being proposed by Gas and Go, things are gonna move up that way anyway, and I think we would wanna start dropping the speed
Mhm.
a whole lot sooner.
Well, and if you look at the other side of 52 on the frontage road,
Mhm.
it's 40. Okay, it's not 50
Yeah,
on
that's
everything.
true.
on
And
that
we
side.
know, why out by the bridge to nowhere, it's 40.
So, I mean, you've got that.
Past our car line, it's 50.
Let's try and stay back on agenda.
Okay, but I'm just saying, on this one, I think it would be good to get data. I would think about the recommendation on either right turn only or no left turn. Will take care of the problem of an accident coming out of the church, which is what we want to do. Moving down the road, like you had said, Dana, down, as things get going, maybe a crosswalk across there. Sometime in the future might be a way to do it as well. That would be identified, to help people that way, so,
You need a sidewalk though.
well.
No, we don't. Remember? We learned that. We don't need a sidewalk.
But I'm just saying, so I think that there's a
It's not
couple
something we
things
should
we could do.
We don't need that anymore. They used to, but now we don't. But I do like the idea of the blind intersection sign.
No, and that could be good too, but if you have a right turn only, then you wouldn't have to worry about a blind intersection because everybody would be going
Right.
right. And so you wouldn't have to worry about anybody going out because everybody is gonna be going right.
The idea
Correct me
was,
if I'm wrong,
so,
you're just looking for data at this point, right?
right, we're looking for data, but also the data is gonna tell us if the blind intersection sign is helping.
And I think that that's not a bad thing. We hadn't thought about the right-hand turn, which would eliminate all that stuff that's.
I make a
written.
motion that we put in place the radar detector signs on the north and southbound for the sketch and add a blind intersection sign halfway down the Minnesota Avenue for the northbound.
The only thing on that is we're taking the two signs that we have for the speed and putting everything that's there. I know that what we have for the one on the other side is helpful, and where you're looking at on center. I would say put the one on the other side catching the speed coming into the city and leave this other one where it's at on center, which gives us the flexibility, but put the one that's over coming into town.
Cause I think there's.
So do we have a
no
second
tendency
on the
to be
motion?
pushing.
I'll second that with a friendly amendment to just use it on the northbound one, using the one on Second, taking the one from Second Avenue.
And
Because we've solved that problem with the stop signs, so the speed is kind of irrelevant at this point there.
So you're.
Am I thinking of the right road? By Animal House?
Yeah.
Remove that sign. Remove the Animal House by the Animal House on Second Avenue. Take that sign and put it on the northbound side of the road along Minnesota Avenue and leave this the west. I don't know where it is, what street?
It's on Center Street is
On
where it
Center
is,
Street.
yeah, so, but
Yeah.
I think that would be the right way.
Right, it's, we're taking the West Center one, the Second Avenue, and put them in either side.
I don't know if we need both.
Just do the one first and.
Well, we're doing for southbound and northbound.
Can I just add that the three-way stops went up on Center today? And so that's that
That'll help.
intersection, yeah, so you've got the 20-mile-an-hour signs and then the stop ahead signs, and then you get the three-way stop.
Right.
And on First, they'll go up on Thursday. So I don't know if you need that sign on West anymore. I don't know.
I just think that, looking at that, I think it might be good, well, whatever, I'm just, definitely coming into the city would be the one that I think we ought to look at on that one. There's other places that I think that we can use, that sign other places in town and not put it there. So I would say like what you are, Dana, the one coming into town would be the most important one that we want to take a look at. And I'm not against the signs, putting the signs up for the blind intersection or those at all. I'm thinking that the other sign would take care of all the problems that are there by right turn only.
Well, the purpose was to collect data, and I think that's the main thing that we're trying to do, and just seeing if the blind intersection sign would help. This is the one that's over. No, it's a blind driveway on Second Avenue. That we currently have, and we probably still have, that would keep that one there.
That 30, we don't need that 30-mile-an-hour. We don't need the sign though, or the data detection.
You're right.
Oh,
We
okay.
move the Second
Yeah.
Avenue and also bring the West Center one over. And put both of them. One for the southbound, one for the northbound, plus the sign. To add blind emergency or blind intersection ahead.
It doesn't hurt as long, I mean, if we put in the traffic stop over there, do you feel like that's gonna make a big difference?
On West Center and First, I think it will. But the problem where the sign is now, the speed sign, is quite a ways away from the stop sign. But I think the stop sign will impact because they're gonna know they have to stop and you know, the signs prior to the stop sign. I think it will help. we'll see. I think the stop sign itself is gonna help.
When you talk about foot,
And
The three-way.
might I just ask, like, what kind of time frame are you suggesting for this data gathering?
In the past, we've kept them up 5 to 6 months or longer.
Oh,
It doesn't hurt to do it both ways. I mean, if both of their areas that we've had trouble with are covered right now, it doesn't hurt to move them and put them here and it doesn't hurt to gather that data, of course. Data is always helpful.
I just experienced on Minnesota Avenue southbound, going through those two curves. People attack those curves like it's a Grand Prix.
They do like to do that.
And I'm just, it's a perception. And maybe that's bad perception, but it just seems like they're going way over 30 miles an hour when they're coming south and likewise slowing down from 40 going up the hill.
one thought that just comes to mind is as the EDA kicks off and as we're looking for businesses to come to town and such too, it might be helpful to have this kind of data both
We get a
ways as
car count
well.
every day, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point too.
Because they're always looking for that, especially in terms of, car count, head count
Correct.
in your city when.
I think we got the car count that was not too old on what we had coming through town, so I think we've got that car count. I can see the one without a doubt, I just give the other one a chance, other places around town, since we only have the two. That's what I was looking at, I mean, I still have some speeders that there are without a doubt over in my area that I'd like to have slowed down. But again, that's just one point, I'm just looking at
put it on East Center, they come down through there about 60 miles an hour from Cedar Beach. The only reason they slow down now, it's gravel, but if you want speed, I mean, I put it in driveway because I want back up.
For the speeders.
So your motion
So-
was for signs both north and south.
Radar
correct?
signs, either side of Third Street,
I did-
southwest.
It's okay. With blind intersection
And add a
signs.
blind intersection to the sign that says right with the curve sign. Added on the same post.
And you're,
I'll second. I mean, I don't see how it can't hurt and it can always be moved.
And I guess,
so you
and
withdraw.
we're
your
saying for 6,
friendly amendment?
Mhm.
I think 6 months seems like a long time.
Second Avenue, West Center's been up for over a year. Really?
Ever since we got them, they stayed right where we
That's
put
what
them.
I'm saying, yeah.
maybe we should move the other one to the side.
Oh, we moved that one to
Yeah, it's been moved over there, so it hasn't been permanent at all.
Maybe we use them a little more.
And had another one that we had it up, but it was just the collection for the solar collector. Was blocked by a tree, which was very effective, but it would only work when the sun had enough charge for it to go.
Would
And
it-
I would love to have that, because we got speeding up and down my area like you can't believe, so.
But here's what I think is that then the roads committee needs to bring forth a recommendation and that's not what we do here. We're just trying to address what you guys already brought forth to us last time. And the recommendations you brought forth. You then changed your recommendations and now we're trying to fix that change. To match something. So if we
Well-
think if the roads committee thinks there's another place in town. Then I think, go ahead and bring that to us, but we could talk about this forever when it's not really it's the committee's job to bring us a recommendation, so.
Is this for roads and should be doing this right now before it turns around and comes to the
Right.
council? I think that was it discussed in roads committee?
No, I just make a suggestion to the council.
Well, last,
Same area of concern, Third Street.
like it was, the whole, recommendation was brought forth last month and then it was changed and then. So I think this was just our way of compromise.
Well, again, I think it should go back through, you know, the proper committee first through roads and streets before you bring a recommendation. That's what I would
Well,
suggest.
that's,
Motion second, let's have a vote.
Okay, let's have a vote. So you get a second that there is?
So, yeah, let's, call for the questions. So all in favor of the proposal to collect data? That was toward the solutions for the pond, but to collect data on Minnesota Avenue. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Nay.
Nay.
I'm gonna sustain. Like.
And explain why.
Because I wanna understand really, what are we saying? So we're saying a sign on each end,
Right.
right? And just collecting data and that's it, but I'm hearing 6 months.
That's what we can. I don't think 6 months was in the motion, but we can. We can make it 7 months, we could make it 3 months, but the more data would be better indication of what it would be like.
I mean, I'm opposed to having both signs there, because I think it's,
So you're opposed,
Yeah.
everybody's opposed to collecting data.
No,
We
we're
got a
saying,
lot of other spots around, we just
we
don't
said,
have.
we said that,
We have a lot of spots, no question. So we can move them.
well, again, you're putting it up there, you said for 6 to 7 months. Okay, that's a long time for what there is for data collection. You know, that was what you said, okay?
I don't think that was, somebody asked how long, but it wasn't part of the
We
motion.
already collected data.
Well, again, if it's
No,
not a
no.
part of the motion, then we voted on the motion. Okay, if you want to turn around and change and have it done differently,
Motion been carried, let's move on, we got other people.
again,
So so the motion
I know you're gonna
failed for
hear that a
approval.
but we got
I
other
think it's
ideas.
unfortunate for the residents that were taking on that approach, but that's okay.
Well, I think that we got
Motion
other
was
ideas.
approved, disapproved, next item. Fire department. We have some minutes. Motion for some new members, Aubrey, Danielle, and Justine. Justin, okay. I make a motion, we approve the new members.
Second,
All in favor, any comments? Favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Approved. So there's a contract and a fee schedule for using the Olmsted County Regional Training Center.
And counselors, mayor and council, there's, in 2015, there was an agreement that was made and approved by council in the minutes. I never did see a signed and executed copy of that agreement, but and at that time, there were no fees attached to it either. This round, there is the fee schedule that is included as well, and the fee schedule is on page 57. Everything from 25 to 56 is the contract, and I can let our training officer for both the OFD and OFR speak further.
So the training center is for the use of the entire county. So quarterly, we go down with other fire departments in Olmsted County and train there. And Rochester Fire picks up the tab for that. We have been using it as of late to go down to do live burns, search and rescue. Actually, this month, we're gonna be using it twice. Search and rescue is next Monday and A live burn is the Monday after that. We get charged not to use it, but we get charged for consumables, like water. They provide the pallets. I get some straw donated every time from a local farmer. Try to pay them, he won't let me pay them. So also when we do get a bill from the county, so this is through the sheriff's office, we can get that reimbursed by the state. So yes, we're going to spend some money, but we're gonna get it back.
So just so I'm clear, so on page 25, when it says compensation, they're not charging us anything to use the facility. But when we go to page 57 on the fee schedule, those are the consumables that we will pay. And all of that is reimbursable, whatever is.
Training, yeah.
Okay. Okay, good.
So just like our training last month was LP burn training, which you guys, I think, heard in here
A little bit,
a little bit.
a little bit.
We turned through $500 worth of LP.
Yeah, that does not surprise me.
So
Well,
that's reimbursable, because it's for training. So, which we got in before the July 15th deadline, so for this last year. If we bring in other groups, if we bring in Riverland, if we bring in Rochester firefighters and have them be our trainers, or there's other training groups out there, then we would, again, that wouldn't be for the training center that we would pay that. This next Monday, when we do our search and rescue, we actually have 2 Rochester firefighters that are trainers coming out to help train us, and we're not paying them anything. Rochester's picking up RFD is picking up the tab for that.
And you're a certified trainer now?
Yep, so I did go through Fire Instructor 1, and I'm certified in that. There's 3 levels actually, but with my certification, we can be down there without another trainer there. So,
And just one more question, Johan.
yeah,
By signing this contract, it saves paperwork on your end, getting everybody through the gate, right?
yep,
Is that it?
every time we go down right now, I have to get everybody to sign it. To sign like a waiver, or just saying that we're insured through the city of Orinoco. Should something happen. And then it would be nice if I didn't have to do that. Down and shake down the guys and then get it down the EOC in Rochester.
So when you do the, excuse me, like on page 51. So when you do the non-burn training, this piece of the document stands for the entire contract period. The live burn participation, that one-time waiver, you would just have to have names added as you take on new members,
Yeah.
right? Am I understanding? Okay. Thank you.
So effective, this is in and out and it won't affect the budget for training. That's true.
Correct.
Make a motion to approve this. Need to make a motion for that?
Yes, you make a motion. So you plan to use some, I guess, the plan is to use that immediately then, or say next week?
We haven't been using it, but yep, we'll be using it again on Monday. And then the next Monday too.
What's the time frame for reimbursement? Is it within the month or pretty quick?
Kind of
Usually,
depends,
I'd
doesn't it,
say
Renee?
within a month or 2. It depends on when I get it submitted as to, because they only do it once a month.
Any other questions? All those, seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, same sign, it's approved. Next item is a turnout gear request for Adam and Chris.
I can talk to that quick too. So For new firefighters that are new to a fire service and are newly certified, like state certification, that's what we're looking for. Their fit testing, their physical, and their turnout gear head to toe. Helmet, boots, turnout gear, two pairs of gloves, two hoods, cancer proofing hoods. We can turn into the state. There's a grant called the Safer Grant. And it's, we send them their certs, we send them how much we spent on their gear. We send them how much we spent for their fit testing, and then we'll get reimbursed for all of it. So there's an outlay here of a lot. Turnout gear from head to toe nowadays is $4,200. When I started, it was $1,500. But they also didn't have all the cancer. But so we will get that reimbursed. I think there's 4 people that I'm still working on, Kent and Danielle Johnson, and then these 2 that will get reimbursed for. So, and they'll reimburse the whole thing.
Okay, good. From
I make a motion that we approve the turnout gear for Adam and Chris.
A second.
I'm glad you suggest that because there's $413 left you turn out on your budget
I know.
out of 25,000. So
Yep, it's expensive. It's crazy.
yeah, grant programs will take care of these 2 plus additional 2. Is that the plan?
So this is for the coat and the pants. Does that mean you already have gloves, hoods, and the other?
The helmets, boots, yep. Yep. Well, they're on order. Stuff is taking quite a lot longer to get. So
Okay, so like next month we'll have additional
I'm guessing,
stuff. The difference between the 28.75 per to the 42 that you're talking about.
yeah,
Okay.
you'll see the other stuff come through from fire
Okay.
safety. If it shows up.
Comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved. Next item is a recruitment event with food trucks. Requesting to waive $100 for. I had, in my mind, you had 7 trucks, is that right?
You.
Okay, so for $700, so.
Many people do you figure will be here?
Well. So
It's a dump.
that's a good question, right? So what I did was. I have like 3 target markets, if you will. One is existing first responders, EMS, fire, law enforcement, and dispatchers. The second is recruitment. We're still looking for new people. And my third one is the public of Orinoco and the surrounding communities. On the first responder side, I've emailed the fire chiefs of Dodge, Wabasha, Goodhue, and Olmsted counties. So they've sent it to all of their staffs. I sent it to all of Southeast Minnesota ambulance directors. I sent it to all 4 of those counties, their dispatch centers as well, and the law enforcement in those counties. So they all know about it. We've been promoting it on Facebook. We've been promoting it on Instagram. That seems to be where we get the most bang for our buck. Flyers are going up and out this week.
And when is it?
What were the hours, the date? Yeah.
Yep, it's next Wednesday, the 26th, from 4 to 8 p.m. right across from the fire station. Food trucks I have coming they're all local. True Smoke Barbecue, True Smoke Smash Burgers, Taco Lab, they were at Mazeppa too. Flap Doodles, Roasted Corn Carnival, Jules Trailer Trash. That's really their name, and the Wandering Scoop. So far. I asked them for no minimums. Typically, when you get food trucks in, they want to know how many people. And they want that number because they know what they stand to make. They all agreed, no minimums. And I asked for a discount on every single item on their menu to discount it for first responders, EMS, fire, law enforcement, and dispatchers. And every one of them agreed.
That's huge.
So I'm kind of asking, and I'm asking them to come to a smaller community. I'm not asking them to come to Rochester where there's 130,000 people.
Well, there's no guarantee for them.
There's no guarantee for them.
Setup costs.
They're not asking to use our power. They're not asking to use our gas. They're not asking to use our water. So I'm asking, now it's a recruitment event for both fire and first responders. In the past 2 years, we've added 14 first responders and we've added 13 firefighters. Almost doubling our ranks.
Great.
We still need more.
Town's gonna grow.
Yeah, right, the town's growing, we need to grow too.
So I would make a motion that
We waive
we
the
waive their $100 fee. Cause they're really doing something
city.
great for the city.
Unfortunately, they might not take $100 in, some of the trucks.
Right.
So, and if you make that motion,
I did.
I'll second that motion. Waive the $100.
Yeah, it's going for a good cause. I mean, it's the benefit of the city. And they're showing some support for to the fire department and the first responders, you know.
And we need to continue
To grow, yeah.
to grow. Fire department, first responders, they're reacting to our citizens.
I appreciate my concern is the precedent it's setting. Food trucks or something coming new. Well, they're out there, but you know, I think there's potential for us to have Lions having food trucks. Every food license that comes for Gold Rush, they pay $100 fee to the city. And I'm just concerned about the precedent setting when they see 7 food trucks here and nobody had to pay a food license and the Lions want to do something and what are their nonprofit
But they're
going
coming,
forward too, so.
they're coming to an event, they have no idea, and actually they're helping you guys out by not having to make food and gamble on getting rid of it. If they go home making $50, they take all their food home with them and you say, sorry, I thought it'd be better.
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
And it's true that we're, the Lions isn't part of the city, right?
that's right.
Right.
They're nonprofit. Yes,
Right,
they're
but-
part of the city. I agree.
Are they a part of the city though?
No,
Right.
Of course.
The
No,
fire
this is-
department and the first responders are part of the city. We are a city entity. So
And it's for,
it's for recruitment.
So my concern is that you promised something before getting permission. And I don't love that.
Sure.
And I,
And I come
and
through
I,
with it because either the fire department budget would pay for it,
right,
which is just city funds.
right, but
From one to
it,
the
you know, it does set the precedent and it kind of makes me think, oh gosh, so now next. So is this how it's gonna be? Like, I feel like our relationship has improved. And I feel like this isn't. And we've done so much work, like we've all had meetings and we've done this and I feel like we're trying to be so transparent and this feels a little. I don't wanna say backhanded, but kind of, it's like ask for forgiveness instead of permission, you know what I mean? That's kind of how it
typically how I operate.
feels. I know, so that's why I was kind of surprised.
I don't agree with that really,
So-
because you guys have the
Just a
money.
minute.
So I just would like
It's done.
that to be kind of addressed and kind of like, you know, in general, you don't. When you do business with people, you don't offer them something that you can't guarantee, and I feel like that's what happened here. And now it's put us in a bad spot. And it makes us look, because we're trying to maintain a precedent. Or just even like address our code, right? So our code has we have it's in our ordinance, like, so we'd be going against our ordinance. By waiving this, so we all, with planning and zoning, you guys are always talking about how we don't want to do that, so that would happen. There's also, not that, and this would shock anybody, there's also a 1-day food. One-day permit in our code book, but it's not on the fee schedule. This should shock none of us, of course, knowing how it. That would have solved this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so. again, if it would have been brought to if it would have been brought to us in the appropriate way, I feel like this could have been worked around in a way that would have made everyone feel better. Cause we all obviously want to help each other and it's all for the right reason. And I agree, you're part of the city, but the way that it was approached, I don't really love. That's all I have to say about it.
Renee, how long are food licenses good for?
1
Are
year.
they good for a year?
They can be.
Yeah,
In our
So-
code, it says 1 year.
yeah. So it's not like they couldn't use that license, you know, at least through the end of the year, if it's on a calendar year basis or.
I don't think so. I think it's,
How many of these are gonna be at Gold Rush?
well, right, that's the other thing.
I'm not
Cause I
sure.
know one of them has already paid the fee for the year. They've done that one.
Like Dana said, that you can do it one day though. Why don't we-
Well, we could, if
We
it was
could.
in our fee schedule, but it's not. It's in our code book, it's in our ordinance, but it's not on our fee schedule.
So I'm gonna give my-
114.04.
What's that?
They did fill out permit information,
Yep.
but there's no, like, there's not a different permit for a 1 day versus a year.
Right, cause it doesn't exist,
So
it
there's not really a
should.
way to say, well, this is really only for a day, so paying $100 for a day versus $100 for a year. There wasn't really a different way to do that.
No, I know there isn't, but it's in our code book, it's just not on our fee schedule or it's not enacted, you know what I mean? It should be, this would help, you know, in this kind of situation, but.
And if they're local, they could come back, right?
I'm gonna give you my opinion. I think everything we're saying here, I don't believe you did anything bad. Because you said if the council doesn't approve it, we're going to take it out of our budget anyway.
Yep.
No matter what we're doing is we're taking it out of one pocket, putting it into the other. This is for the good of the city. We wanna grow our fire department, our first responders. To me, I don't know what the argument is.
Put up for a vote.
Well, and I'm,
I'd say we vote.
I say we vote.
well, and I just wanted to add too, that I recognize that it is shifting money, but it is still being transparent in terms of how we're handling that money for people
And
versus just flat out waiving. And it's, when we first talked, we were talking one truck and it was, yeah, fire relief can pick that up. And later learned, okay, now we're up to 7, so that changes it. And then just looking at the budget, and I know, to your credit, Johan, I know that you're doing a bunch of training and it does get reimbursed. But it's also the city fronting the money up front till we get reimbursed, so just, and I know you guys are monitoring your budget as much as I am probably, but that's just kind of where I'm coming from in terms of transparency too, and how we're handling the funds, so.
Well, and I'd like to say too, even promising to pay it from the fire relief. You just gotta remember that $700 of tax, you know, that is revenue for the city, that is possible revenue that we are losing.
Sure.
So that should come up for a vote, you know, losing $700, that's not a ton of money when you look at our budget, but it is significant and taxpayers might not love that. They might not though, and that's where it's like, it should really be maybe the fire, you know, I don't know.
And to that point.
I don't
We could,
I look
you know,
what they
we don't
bring in.
have a line item right now for recruitment. And that's something we talked about last time we met. So we're gonna add some line items, and one is recruitment. So, you know, if I had a line item for it, this would come out.
Sure.
But right now we don't.
So if you had a line item that was for recruitment, you would budget to cover these?
I would budget to cover a whole bunch of different events.
Okay,
Where, you know, recruitment is tough, right? And recruiting the younger generation is even tougher. Right?
Every fire department suffered.
They are suffering. There used to be lines, there used to be hundreds of people that are applying for Rochester Fire. Now they've got a couple dozen. Right? people ask me like, how many people have you added in the past, year or 2 years? And I tell them and they're like, well, that's crazy. We don't get that kind of, numbers, and it's because we're trying different things.
Well, and I love that thinking outside the box. That's just exactly how I think too. I think, again, I just worry about the transparency and how it looks and
So just one clarification then. So are we saying that if we do permit this to waive the fees, that's giving them a food permit or not? If we waive the fees, then there's no food permit such that any of those 7 can come back into town anytime. in the next year.
It's only one day,
One to one,
one day,
Missing that.
4 hours.
sorry,
It's only 4 hours from 4 to 8, but yeah,
okay, but they're not getting a food permit.
no, just.
Okay.
Well,
Because my concern, if we allow it to feed, they
but do
get
they
food
still
permit,
have
then-
to, they
They
have,
haven't-
Yeah, no, this is only one
I
time.
did, in my email, I did send out and said, you need to fill out the permit forms
Okay.
and there's a laundry list of things, right? There's like 8 things that they have to fill out and they have to go through
Insurance
that.
and everything else that way.
well, they still need to provide that though.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
right.
so, yeah.
Okay, I just wanna,
We're not gonna get.
okay, I just wanna make sure that that's
We
still,
need to make sure they're licensed.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
so that was making sure that the city is covered.
right.
For all of those things, so in essence, we're gathering all the data, including a permit application that we're gonna charge nothing for them to get a permit for 1 day, 4 hours.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments?
I would make one more comment that P and Z take a look at this 114.04 and add that to your laundry list of things.
114.04.
Yes,
Thank you.
I think that would, we could make it super cheap, $25 or something like that, so that this isn't an issue again,
Because I had a lady call me today that wanted to come to our concert. Sunday night. The Classic Brass concert for a food truck. And I said, well, we haven't discussed it with the Parks Committee. I didn't want to commit to that, but sometime next year, so.
But that's kind of altogether different deal.
It is, but the point is, food trucks are coming, they're interested, and there's going to see more of this, so if there's those type of things that we can have a more simple, efficient 1 day permit versus a year permit. For reduced costs, that may help, so that's my emphasis on my comments, so. All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Alright,
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved?
I appreciate
Any
it.
discount tickets for council members or
You're a veteran?
veteran? Yeah, veteran, I'll take it.
Yep.
All right, fire relief minutes. Responders. Thank you, new member. Make a motion, we approve Audrey, Colby and Kathy.
second,
Comments? Favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. Opposed? Approved. Search operations. Dana. Was there anything?
Was there a vote on that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes. There was a vote.
Vote on that, okay, sorry.
so, yeah, emergency operations, so, Johan and I had a conversation about. The fact, and Joe, this is kind of includes you too. Not that the sewer project's the only project that'll ever happen, but whenever we know of a road closure. Even if it's, like the water, water main even today breaking and maybe that causes issues or something, we should have a plan where. Staff, whoever's here, Kane or Sunny or Joe, does contact the EOC person and then they need to contact. Their dispatchers, so when they're sending out emergency vehicles, the dispatchers know ahead of time instead of getting here and looking at the signage. So,
So on all of the closures,
or the resident notices EOC is copied on all.
Yes, so,
They're part of the distribution list. They always get that stuff.
okay, so,
So we might be looking for a little more detail. So. Road closures, right, we're gonna have them. Minnesota Avenue is just really tough for us because that's our main artery. Same with East Center going out of town, because we handle the township as well. So we actually had 14 calls since the beginning of the month, and 12 of them, our response times have been impacted from the road closure. And there was a cardiac arrest, and there was an anaphylactic yeasting. So we all, it's not just for us, it's also for Mayo Clinic Ambulance Service, because they're coming right behind us, right? They're an ALS unit, so they can provide a higher level of care than we can. And then it's also for our other emergency services that support us. So we have Pine Island comes and assists us a lot, Rochester can, and then so does Mazeppa. So, and they use different dispatch centers because they're in different counties. So we really need to talk to Olmsted County Dispatch, MCAS Dispatch, because they're different. Wabasha County Dispatch, Goodhue County Dispatch, and even Dodge County. Because we have mutual aid agreements with all of the services in those counties.
and so currently your process is, like, yeah, so you get that letter. And then that would have helped. I mean, that was, there's even a drawing, so that you could have. Cause your EOC person head of your EOC is Dan right now.
Correct.
So then that's his job to distribute that to those dispatchers. So. I guess like that's already taken care of and built into the project. I kind of am looking at going forward. Other events that happen, and there needs to be some sort of almost like flow chart. Do you know what I mean? A procedure, especially as we grow. So that's kind of what we just wanted to bring that up as far
Yep,
as
yep. That was our conversation.
So just to add to that conversation, we tried to provide those maps and things that we got in emails as like residents of the community. We tried to provide those to the dispatch centers and whatnot, and they had further questions about, like, they actually want day-to-day updates of the roads open with one lane today. I mean, that significantly impacts their ability to respond to calls. There wasn't great information about, like, to the west of Minnesota Avenue, how to get into those neighborhoods. There's 2 streets off of there that would have been impacted by the road closure, and what routes do they have to get into those neighborhoods, and what roads are open, what roads are closed, when is it open with one lane? They're looking for more information than just the map drawing, which is helpful, although even for somebody who's not from this community, that shows, like, as far as I can tell, it shows like the sewer project, not roadways. And so trying to find where exactly the roadway is on those and stuff is somewhat challenging.
And you're utilizing the iPads a lot, right?
Yep.
So.
So
Aren't.
again,
Those aren't updated with any road closures.
Right.
so then I guess what I would is, to have Dan contact Joe for specifics. Would that be?
Yeah, I didn't get any questions from any EOC.
Right.
I know Dan emailed you. I think he had reached out to you.
That's true, I did respond to Dan, but in terms of Rochester or anything else.
Well, no, it would be Dan then he would bring that information to them. Like, it's not their job to reach out to us, it's our job to reach out to them.
And
And
if I
so-
remember right, Dan's
Did do that?
comment was. He was wanting information before the closure, and basically the response was that the. Additional information was coming out the next day, and it did come out the next day. Yeah, we tried to get information out, but on the other side of it. There's a lot of different.
Moving parts.
We totally
Moving
understand there's a
parts.
lot of moving parts, and even if we can get,
We still have to do something.
we still have to do something because it's tough for us to respond.
Yep.
Law enforcement was taken completely by surprise. They had no idea the road was, I mean, they saw the road closed starting whatever day, but they don't get our emails, so they were.
They're on
Well,
the
they
distribution list.
get our
Yeah.
emails. That's not,
They are.
yeah, that's not on us. Just That's the ones that we talked to didn't know
Yeah,
about it when
they
they
didn't
got here that morning.
Yeah, must be disseminated from their perspective, or from their, there's other processes.
Right.
So whatever we can do to get us the most up-to-date information when you have it, and then we can disseminate that to the different dispatch centers. That's great.
So the road's open a day early.
I know, I'm
And
really excited about that.
then we'll have to make sure that we do something ahead of time for the next one.
Hopefully.
But you're right, it changes,
Hopefully the closures are about done with now.
Right, but things happen, you know, trees fall, even if it's like a tree falling, then Kane should alert. Whoever's Public Works should alert the OC and then they, you know, until it's clear. That's just really how that process should go. And I think it's, yeah.
What was it, 2 Decembers ago when we had all those tornadoes and straight line winds come through, we had a tree down across Minnesota.
Right.
And yeah, we called back to dispatch and let them know.
Mhm.
This was down until
Right,
the morning and then Kane communicated that after it was removed.
right,
But, you know, up-to-date information.
right. And there should just, it's just like an updated policy and procedure, like we're doing with everything.
right.
I'll add it
So
to the list.
what was given out in defense of the reports, there was an identified detour too. With the road closures. And we all know residents didn't adhere to that. And, but there was a detour, there was an official detour that I'm sure EOC was aware of it, so it's not for lack of doing anything, we did something, it's just that closures, you know, it was almost an hour by hour basis that something opened up, something closed, so that's just kind of hard to. How do you assign somebody full-time to do that? We don't have that person, of course.
No, I'm definitely not looking for.
The contractor doesn't either, probably.
No, I'm not looking for an hour by hour. It wouldn't be bad to do a day by day.
So, and going forward with our construction, I think there's 2 more Minnesota Avenue closures, Center Street and 4th Street. I think are the next 2 here in the next 4 to 6 weeks or something like that, so.
Is there a way to, for your, when there is a Minnesota closure, is there a way to keep the response vehicle in a different location?
So we discussed that. With fire, it's almost not feasible because everybody has their gear.
Yeah.
So we don't want them to put their gear into their cars because it's loaded with carcinogens,
Mhm.
right? So you don't want to be driving around your kids with your turnout gear in your car. We can't really, you know, assign people because we don't know who's gonna be in town.
Right.
Right? We don't have a duty roster, as it were. For first response, we could drop them on either side. Which is a little easier, except for keys are always in it. You know, there's thousands of dollars of equipment on those rigs.
And you still have the issue of trying to get responders to the truck. So if I live on the north side of the closure and can't get to the south side to the truck or vice versa,
Right.
it's still a delay to get responders to wherever the truck stays.
And we have had people go directly to the scene, which is not part of our SOP or SOG. It's definitely, we want you to come to the fire hall and get a rig.
Mhm.
Because then we know that you're in a city vehicle, you're protected, and you have all your. know,
Right, you have
PPE that-
equipment, yeah, right, yeah.
To that point, at some point, we'll have to look at redundancy. Stuff over there, stuff over here.
And that's already come up with what we were talking
Yeah.
about with P and Z, so that's already being addressed, so.
So I guess the takeaway from our discussion is that we have city staff look at putting together a flow chart, if you will. But you make a good comment about the tree falling, you know. I would expect there's gonna be a couple more trees falling in that same place anytime soon, so. We'll have the same situation, so. All right, good discussion, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, planning and zoning, resolution 2023-21.
I can talk just briefly about that. This is, a location that we talked about last year. And we had given permission to build a garage. This is basically just, putting a driveway in. There was an existing driveway, they're moving the driveway from one location to the other and putting the cul-de-sac, not the cul-de-sac, but the culvert underneath there. So they'll get rid of the existing driveway and move it to the new driveway.
Was there a time frame for, we've had a time frame when the old garage is gonna be removed, but it hasn't yet, so.
Yeah, there was an issue that there was with approval from the building with electric that was there. So until they get the final approval from what the garage is that they built right now, they can't move to the other one, so. They plan on having it the same way we did last time, within 3 months after it was done, and they'll take care of that.
So this one still has conditions of approval, which include, looking at the driveway.
That hasn't been submitted yet.
No, because it was part of this, getting this, piece approved.
I make a motion, we adopt resolution number 2023-21.
And I second that.
The comments? Done the voice vote, please.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
Counselor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor Bergner,
Hi.
Counselor Richards.
Aye.
Counselor Crowe.
Aye.
It's approved. Parks and Trails. Update, right now, the last, conversation I've had with the, engineer manager from, MDOT was that, he's assigned it to another person, one of his staff. Thank you, Joe.
Good night.
He's assigned to his staff. To look at it and, I think they recognize the validity of the request. It's just a matter of working through some of the details and getting it scheduled. I don't anticipate anything this year just because of projects that have been assigned and funded for this year, so I'm hoping we'll hear something for next year. I did send him our map of a project plan that was put together by the committee, Parks Committee back in 2011. Stantec put it together. And so I sent a copy of that to him as well, to show how we want to develop the park and the need for the fence, so. More to follow. There's a discussion, I was at the meeting, did you discuss that?
I can talk with Keen about that outside the meeting and see what he.
Okay.
It's just, some observations by.
I know it's pretty old playground equipment.
It is, and that's kind of part of the discussion too. Do we just remove it? Do we work on it? And I think maybe that can be just a discussion with Keen, although it's for the younger kids and it does get utilized. Is it safe though? That's the question.
Yeah.
And do we replace it then? For, you know,
Consideration to grants, whatever, something like that. maybe.
it was more of an FYI discussion. But since Kane isn't here, we can push that and I can email him.
Last item is, concert this coming Sunday night from 7 to 8 with nuclear floats at the end, so. Come enjoy. The concert we had on July 2nd, we had over 100 people at it, so it was well attended.
Very good.
We're hoping to have a good turnout this year as well. Personnel. Maybe Senate, there's an action on personnel policies. discussion there? Was there anything in the, or you had something saying in the packet, page 73?
Oh, yes, page 73. Give you the background kind of thing and my and the issue was basically that there's a mismatch in understanding on what would be discussed tonight, so. I did offer a recommendation to Councilor Richard, and Councilor Phillips was copied on it. Didn't have a response, but I'm hoping that's acceptable.
We are working on it. I just finally got the current policy this week of what personnel policy was, and I've gone over and read that one. I've researched what there is at LMC, so I'm very familiar with both of those, being able to put both of those together. So I think that Jim and I can do it. I mean, I've dug into it, you know.
Well,
So.
Yeah, and the template, the LMC template was provided to you back in
Right.
March,
But I
right?
didn't
So,
have the current one to be able to put that together, and I got that from Nate this week. Okay, I was
Right.
trying to get that, so.
right,
Yeah,
I think we can move pretty quick off of that now that we've got that together, so.
okay, so am I not included in any of that, or the two of you are doing that on the side, or?
I just finished doing everything, because I just got it on Monday, okay, yesterday. Okay, I've already gone through and read it and highlighted it and everything else that there is with the current policy. So I haven't been able to put the two together, but I just got that information to be able to do that, so.
And I started making hand edits, so to your question, yes. You definitely.
Yeah.
You have to.
So, but we are moving ahead
Yeah,
quickly.
and it's not the entire book, just to be clear, 'cause I think that's where there was misunderstanding. Because we didn't talk about for the items listed in last council meeting, it wasn't that we were gonna have the whole book updated and bring it to the next one. We were going to take the policies that pertain to these items, and we were going to make updates, and we will work with you on those updates, but we're not bringing the whole book. That wouldn't happen.
But see, that's where I'm thinking we need to be, is
But we
because
do.
the current policy doesn't reflect at all that you have a city administrator. That's the biggest, in my view,
Right.
one of the biggest things that need to be changed within the current policy.
Yeah, I get that,
And
but
over
my-
and above what these might be, because that's gonna be playing into this as well.
well, and my issue with that is, I mean, we've had this, it's been a year. We've got the new template. We're volunteers. So we can't turn this around overnight.
But that's why I'm offering to take it on and then share it like I did the other time.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna wait. I'm gonna do these. We can't wait for this stuff, because this is affecting our city hall. This is affecting city operations. So, and we talked about it with Kane, and we talked about it in personnel meetings, is do spot changes. Do what we gotta do to get by until we can get the overall book put together.
But I'm suggesting in my recommendation that will be ready to come back in its entirety to council for approval in August.
I don't know if it can be done within 30 days.
I don't think so.
I don't think that's pushing it way too quick with everything we have going on in the city right now.
So can I,
Put it maybe in September, but not in August.
say one thing about that? Mayor, can you acknowledge me? Pardon when I'm not there.
Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I talked to our labor attorney who I assigned to help with this. And he thought 30 days was possible, but extremely difficult to do the policy that quickly. Because I think once you get, the way I understood it was the personnel committee was gonna, use the league template probably and kind of work it up. And then, and that template has choices you can make, but work it up and then share it with our labor attorney to get a consultation about, different choices the city could make and what the legal meaning of those choices is. But from the time you get it to our attorney, he's going to need probably 2 weeks. That's rushing it 2 weeks. So I think, I guess it's up to the council. We'll do the best we can when you give us the policy to do it as fast as we can. But I just want you to realize that.
It's a big,
Well, and so I talked to Nico, his name is Nico, and he has done this multiple times for other cities. So it's not like he's unfamiliar with redrafting personnel policies. It's not a 6-month project, but 1 month is, it's more like a 2-month project, in his view. So,
Well, and that's quite honestly, I mean, I've been living with this thing at least, since March, if not earlier than that. So, and listening to what staff has been saying, and so anyway.
So Nico is on call to consult with you when you're ready, and we won't follow up with you. We'll just let you guys, the personnel committee, work on it. And then when you're ready, you can send it off and he'll meet with you and explain things and help you get it finalized.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware there was someone already assigned.
Yeah, no, I sent an email to everybody and copied Nico on it right after the last meeting, but I thought you were doing the whole policy too, which I didn't say anything, but that seemed rushing it to me. And then I talked to Nico and he said he can make it happen if that's what you guys really want. But 1 month is pushing it, but he would do his best essentially. So if you can give it just a little more time, I think you can. It's, when you're working off the model ordinance, either the league model, and then our firm has our own model that we prepare and use in cities. He can share that with you too. They're very similar, but not the same. But when you're working off a model, it's not a 6-month project. It's more like a 2-month project, but it's not. 1 month would be tough to get it in the packet deadline, which is really less than a month because the packet goes out early. So it's really like 3.5 weeks. And that's, I think that's pushing it a little bit.
Plus there was
We definitely want to do it right, put some thought into it, not just.
and then we've got Gold Rush that's coming up also next month that it takes a lot of time in between on what's going on, so.
So
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, I've already gone through it.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. It's not like it's sitting and hasn't been addressed. It's just a matter of putting it together, but I've got both parts. I've read both, highlighted both. I'm into it where I at least have a good feel for it.
I don't think there's anybody saying you shouldn't provide input to Sunny, which I think that's your plan. But I don't think it's right to think that what you're providing is going to be what is in the final comment, because I think that's why the three of you have to agree that that's what's going to be in there. So you're providing that input into it.
Right,
and that's what we're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. I do think for the sake of what we talked about last time, I guess my question is, I thought we were under the understanding of office hours and
No, I thought we
the
had
things-
decided those things last time. so
Right.
Last meeting, so.
yeah.
My takeaway from the meeting was that Sunny was going to review the whole policy and take your into consideration, but she was going to review that with city staff before bringing it back to city council.
Well, you have to put everything together to present it to city staff, which
Right.
is,
And that's what she was working on, so.
I didn't understand that Sonny was working on it. I understood that we were, and then we would work with Sonny after we made edits, bring it to Sonny. And then the three of us over that, and then wherever it goes from there.
Aren't the three of you the committee?
Pardon?
Isn't the committee made of three of you?
That's what I said.
You keep talking about yourselves making comments.
No, I said, we make updates, we bring it to Sonny, we get Sonny's feedback. And it goes from Sunny to wherever, and then it comes to council.
And I guess that's where I felt like the staff who was last month when these items were specifically brought to council because I seriously made a commitment to staff that they would get to see. And it sounds like you had a conversation with Kane, but that's not the same as me having a conversation with all of staff, because for example, wanting city hall hours to be 8 to 5 or whatever, or all staff hours to be 8 to 5, that's gonna get some pushback on it. And we all learned from the mayor last time, that there was a reason why those hours were set as they were before my time, but that there was some rationale behind that. I don't dispute where you're going with it, because our thinking historically has been very much aligned, and it's only lately that I feel like there's this shift. But I do know I felt badly at the last meeting that you wanted to make these changes and have them adopted at this meeting. That's my understanding of where you were coming from, but that wasn't taking into consideration with other staff.
Well, what I got out of the last meeting was, we were talking about these because we were having trouble getting new hires and stuff. So we had something in concrete what we could offer them, not saying, well, I think we'll give you PTO, or we're gonna give you an increase in living, or, length of period of probation, or, that's what I picked up from the last meeting, is we had to get something in line, so we gotta get people hired for now and there, and we need more people up here, the way it sounds, and.
That's, with all due respect, I mean, that's not, the argument that we need to get something in place is inaccurate, because we do have something in place. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do we want to make some changes? Absolutely. But you've been doing some spot changes, and what happens is it gets changed in one place and muddled in somewhere else, rather than. Well, you added Juneteenth. I mean,
I didn't have that.
That was done by the state.
Yeah, we didn't.
No, that's this year. It was added to your personnel policy before. So it's already in the
We did it
policy.
as
You got it.
council.
But I'm just saying that was done, okay, so I mean,
Right.
that's not any question.
Yeah, and I wanna be clear, Sonny. At that last meeting, as far as I'm concerned, there was no understanding that you weren't going to be involved or staff weren't going to be involved. It was my understanding we were going to come, we were gonna make some edits based on what the council talked about, put them in that. Then the three of us get together, read it, look it over, make our edits, bring the staff in if that's if that's the way it is. I guess I don't know too many places that the staff write the personnel policies. It's usually management, but I think, is it a great idea that staff can have some input? You bet. But at no point was there anything ever mentioned that there was anyone going to be cut out of it.
Can I just, I feel like it's happening again. Something that should have been taken care of at a committee outside of the council is in front of us again. This should only be brought to us once you guys have had this meeting. So I don't know what this discussion is for. I think you guys just need to take this back, work on it, the three of you work with it. The rest of us aren't on this committee.
Yeah, I don't.
You need to bring.
I don't know why I got fidgets. I'm 100% agreement.
Yeah, I didn't ask for it to be on.
But I would request that the three of you work together,
So I guess I would like to make, go ahead, sorry.
and we
Right.
things like this stop coming to us. I feel like this keeps happening and
Yeah, it's okay with the
making
junk
our
out.
meetings unnecessarily long.
So do you have an understanding that you want to, the highlights up for our meeting? What you're proposing, which I think is what we're kind of reconsidering here, is that this was going to be put into the January 2021 personal policy that you have now. A month later, Sunny's proposing to do the whole personnel policy under an administrator rule. That's
Not a
what-
month,
and to incorporate, what's that?
I think we agree.
That's what she
based on
submitted
what
to.
Mike is saying, it won't be a month.
No, I'm saying that in general, that's what we're trying to ultimately get to is a new personnel policy with your input into these items that we discussed at the last meeting. And ultimately, that's what we're gonna come back with. May take 2 months, may take 3 months, but I think that's what we're working towards.
Right, but okay,
Okay.
and my question in that, so if we're gonna go just by policy, and I think that's why it was talked about at the last committee, or the last council meeting, is there's some things on here, I think they were brought because they had to be addressed for the good of the city. And that's city hall hours. Because let's be very transparent. There's a lot of people disgusted with the city hall hours and being able to get a hold of people, knowing when people are gonna be here, when they're not going to be here. Being able to contact somebody at the window. So that was all part of this, and then the other part with the PTO and the raise and whatnot was to address and immediate issues that were happening with staff. So that's why I refer to this as spot changes, spot updates. And I think that's exactly what it was to get through all of it, because it's been coming to us from staff. Some of these things.
Well, and but I'm gonna push back on this a little bit because if staff members are bringing things to the two of you, that is not the way that we've agreed this organization should be run.
Right.
And so the question is, do you want a city administrator or do you not want a city administrator? Are you looking for the two members of the personnel committee that are from council to manage the staff, or I just.
Well, I think we could get into that further, but not at this meeting. But to that point, most all of this is what came up at staff meeting too. And we were at that staff meeting.
And
so
I
it
was
here
not.
that
And I was not,
You were not.
right?
I don't know what that means, but anyway.
Sounds like it wasn't a meeting.
It was a
Sounds
meeting,
like it
but,
wasn't a
but,
staff
but
meeting. Staff
it was a
wasn't there.
staff meeting, but somebody wasn't there, so I
Yeah.
don't know. That was-
But the plan was Sunny would be
But
there.
we have talked about too, that the difference between having a staff meeting, which is staff, versus having a meeting of staff where the personnel committee members from council also attend. It changes the tenor of the meeting. And you will hear things that staff may voice, and even if I were there, in their view, maybe that means that it's gone through the channels like the order indicates that it should and reaches you, but that's not the flow that we want. Certainly not the flow I want.
But I think that we all understand that, Sunny, okay, so I think we're clear on that. I would like to try to move on so we can get everything done and get out of here at a decent time tonight. Yeah.
So just so I'm,
Yeah, three of us are
sorry.
gonna get together and it'll work out fine.
I'm sorry, Mike, did you have something to add?
No, I was moving because my back is spasming. I'm standing at my standing desk.
Okay. So then am I clear that my recommendation is ignored, rejected? What would you say to that?
His staff is gonna get together.
We're gonna get together, or we can table this till next month if you wanna do it that way, but I just say we're gonna work together on it right now. Okay, so.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll look more information coming back from the personnel committee as a direction as opposed to discussion.
Yeah.
Along with Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Orinoco FYI. Things are gonna pick up here really quick into July, into August. Unfinished business.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
if we go back to item K-2. On
Okay,
page
yeah,
75, on page 75, speaking of staff hours,
yes.
we wanna be reflective of.
I was trying to remember exactly. When we closed on Thursday in the past. I don't know if it was noon or 2 p.m.
I believe the first year I was here, we stayed open till 4, but it was really hard for us to get, we had to move our cars and it was a
Right.
big, huge ordeal. I got screamed at in City Hall. Last year, we decided we were gonna close at 11 when they started coming in because there's so much traffic in and out. People had come in anyways. And then I had to stay open because of elections. And then we've always closed on Friday.
Right. So the only between 11 and 12, there's some vendors coming in 11, some are coming in 11:30, stage process coming in, so. But the food vendors should all be in place by, 9 o'clock typically.
You wanna close at 11?
You use PTM?
It would be nice, just because it's harder to get in and I've gotta move my car and then I'm
Me too.
parking down there and we've got all the. Public works people too, it's just.
Would you use PTO time or? Close?
Well, if you're waiving fees for the fire department, perhaps you could just allow staff to.
No, you work for the city.
Benefit
You
and
work
stuff.
for the city, the fire department's an entity of the city.
I don't remember how we did it in the past.
You use PTO last.
Well, the good news is there's
I have
no
one.
election for you to
No.
stay open.
We do have a
for.
meeting that week, so I'll have extra hours in on Tuesdays, so I mean, it's kind of a wash on my hours, but.
Can we go back and look at the record from a year ago? But I'm guessing we just gave the time off with pay, but I don't.
I kind of think you did too, because you guys closed.
That's true for public works too. It'd be
Mhm.
gone.
Yeah, they closed the same time we did. I believe.
The Public Works was kind of working during that time. They were busy helping on what was going on. So,
We try and have it done by Thursday noon, public works people.
no, I know that Corey was helping cut down trees and bushes and people that were moving, doing stuff back here and all kinds of stuff that was going on that I was aware of on that Thursday. Maybe that was Thursday, yeah, Thursday.
I'll make a motion to close City Hall at 11 a.m. on Thursday, August 17th. And close all city facilities on Friday, August 18th for the entire day.
I'll second that. And then we
So
were
that
gonna,
means they're not, city employees are not working. If we're closing, they're not expected to work, correct? Is that what
well,
we're saying?
I don't know how we're gonna do it with Public Works, because we had to use them for stuff that was going on. I mean, they were pretty involved during that. And again, you guys know more history than what I did. I just have 1 year. of what there was and what we were doing last year.
Okay, so
So
then,
I was
I know
looking
city
at
staff
the,
was off on Friday for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Thursday afternoon, there might have been some, but we can,
But at that point too, Kane's usually working at the fire department in that role. And Corey was
I said-
working as a volunteer in that role, so it kind of.
Maybe it was, again, I
I
don't
think-
know
and
how
that's-
it was done
It
last,
gets,
except
it
he was
gets
working.
messy because they're in both roles, you know what I mean? So it looks like they're working for us, but they're really volunteering.
Yeah, it's almost find out what was
Right.
done last year.
yeah, I'm just saying for the record, in terms of equality across all city
Right?
employees, if one group gets off with pay, the other groups get off with pay, that doesn't mean they're working. Right?
that's probably true, yeah.
Yeah. From an equity standpoint, that's the way it's gotta be.
So would you want to make a friendly amendment to say with pay then? To clarify it, as opposed to PTO or just?
I don't think that's council's job. That's our administrator's job.
Oh, okay.
We don't decide that. I've never made a motion about that before. I don't really plan to.
Okay.
We are not that type of city.
I think it needs to go down as an understanding, if we're saying that. So we're guaranteed, and it's in the minutes for next year.
City administrator. Like with all
Yeah,
of
that's
the
fine.
staffing has that.
But I'm saying, I want it in the minutes, what the decision is going to be, so we're not guessing again next year. You know, is it paid, is it not paid?
Definitely not gonna be not paid.
Okay,
But the city administrator, but if they want to use, the city administrator wants to use PTO or comp time or whatever the case may be, but it's still paid in some form. That's for the city administrator to decide. Do they accept the friendly amendment, Jim?
Yes, I will.
Any other comments?
It
All in
was
favor?
it was my motion.
I know, but I had a second to friendly change that was made.
Jim accepted your friendly amendment for city administrator.
You asked him, so I was confused. All right.
Okay, that's he, yeah, he's second. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Approved. Next item, unfinished business. 115 Third Street. Jim, do you have something to add in the packet or what?
no, I was asking for an update from Sunny on that, to update the council,
Okay.
where we're at with that.
Oh, I gave
What our
my
dates are.
update. I'm sorry, I gave my update last month and I thought you had something new to say.
No, I asked you to update the council. So have we moved forward at all?
We had a few other comments tonight, that's for sure on that, so.
Just gotta go to him, send out letters that we gotta move on, Mary Ellen ain't gonna
Yeah,
do nothing. And if it's getting to be a health hazard, you know, if animals are living in it, we gotta do something.
So can I make a suggestion on this one? It's one of the reasons I came to the meeting tonight. So I think if you want to move forward with enforcement, you need to, your new building official is CMS. And I think what you should do is just, if Sunny's working with the property owners to try and get them to voluntarily clean it up, which you should definitely continue to do that. But you should just ask them in a very polite way if the building inspector can inspect the property. And then if they consent to that, then schedule CMS for an inspection. Both of the buildings and of the, what I'll call the curtilage or the area, the grass around it. And just to provide an opinion about whether or not the structures are hazardous, number one. And then whether or not there's a nuisance under your nuisance code. And that way you have some facts to go on. And that way you kind of know where you're at. And then if the building official comes back and says the building's about to fall over, you know, then I think you have to do something. But it's just we're kind of guessing here just based on what's in pictures, and the typical way to handle this is to first do an investigation, just like the police do an investigation before they charge a crime. You should have your building official do the investigation, render an opinion, and then based on his or her opinion, then move forward with whatever action you may or may not want to do. I think, you know, you can probably determine that there is some nuisance code violations just by looking at it. But last month, Jim had showed the pictures, and one of the things he had pointed out was the hole in the roof of one of the buildings. And so that goes beyond your code. That's a statutory thing that you would need like a formal building official's opinion on. You know, and then there's options. Once you get that opinion, then you can meet with the property owners and discuss the options to move forward. And one of the options is probably the best option is they just consent to allowing the city to go in and clean it up on their behalf. And they would consent then to allowing those costs to be assessed against the property. And that happens in a good percentage of the cases if the property owners are cooperative. Sometimes people they don't have the logistics or the means or the ability to clean up their properties when they get this way. And it's not that they're necessarily mean people or anything like that. And then if they don't consent to that, then you can consider enforcement actions. And I think you can probably clean the outside of the property up by a council order, not going to court. But if it gets to a point where you want to abate hazardous buildings or structures by either tearing them down or like re-roofing them or something like that, you would need a court order for that. And I would want to have a deeper discussion with the council at that time because that's expensive. I'm going to file something with the district court tomorrow about one we did in Winona, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom shotgun house on the east end of Winona. And it ended up being $68,000 of remediation to tear the building down and fill the hole up, mostly because of asbestos remediation, because it was a very, very old building. And then the property owners were remarkably uncooperative. That was the other cost overages. So before the council invests that kind of money, you need to be fully informed, you know, of what the hazards are, you know, what the dangers are to the community, you know, what the paths forward are and how much is that going to cost before you make your decision. So I think having any more meetings until the building official gives an opinion is not my recommendation. I think you hire those people for a reason. This is what they do, and you need to pay for that and ask them to do the inspection if you want to move forward with something.
Mike, what if they don't agree?
Then we get a search warrant, and then we get an administrative search warrant. We go do it anyway.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Mike, you had mentioned, and we know this was done before. I'm assuming this is the same process followed, right?
Well, there's two separate processes you can use. One is a court order at the district court. That's if you're going to tear any buildings down or do any substantial amount of remediation. And then there's your nuisance code. When you don't have to go to court for that, you, the city council, are the court. Basically, you would adopt a resolution based on findings that there's a nuisance code violation in your city code. And then you could just hire contractors to go on and abate those nuisances. I was just reading your code now as you guys were talking about other stuff, and there's multiple possible nuisance code violations here. Section 9021, building maintenance and appearance. There's probably some stuff there. And then the general nuisances, there's something about debris on the exterior of the homes. And so there's all cities have these codes. It's just a question of, you know, what are you basing your council resolution ordering them to repair it? You want to base it on a professional building inspector's opinion. You don't want to just say, oh, those are the pictures, we're going to do that. You know, I think you want to have, just like the prosecutor doesn't charge a complaint without a police investigation, you know, you'd want to have the investigators investigate. So that's step one.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I think, and you maybe already shared this with Sonny, but if you want to put these 3 or 4 things that you mentioned in a memo to the staff, that'd be great.
You want me to put in a memo about the process?
Is that something you need or?
Well, the county, I've already had the county come out and look at issues on the property within the framework of our ordinances. And they did a report on that as well.
So
Go ahead.
that might be enough then. I mean, I didn't know that. So that might be enough if they found violations. Did they do it on the buildings though? I mean, if you want to tear buildings down, the people at the public forum today wanted to tear buildings down, I think. So if that's what you want to do, you're going to need a building official to, say that this building is structurally unsound because of these provisions of the state building code or fire code, whatever.
Well, that report from the county health department or whatever was the basis for me to work with these people on clearing up the yard and some of those things, because what's one person's junk is another person's treasure, and these are memories for her. So it's a process. I'm trying to make sure she's, even if she goes there only once a week, I don't care, as long as there's progress, move 5 things out. Okay, that's, because that's all process, but I do understand like the hole in the roof.
The
That's
vermin are an
something
issue
else.
too, and that's not gonna get
Well,
solved by
but-
clearing out things.
Right, but even, I bet any one of us can have mice in our garages, right?
She's
and
talking
stuff
about
like that.
raccoons, and that's the difference.
Well, then
And the other thing that I'll say, and I mentioned it before, if that place was sitting on Main Street or they were Ryland or Dana or any one of our neighbors, would we want to allow that for a long period of time? No.
The
You know,
whole is,
see,
the
for me, it's not been a long time.
Well, for you, it hasn't, right?
and you don't live here, and you don't live next door to it, and
Well,
the hole in the yard, that's worrisome, obviously, we all remember baby Jessica in the well. That was
So,
dramatic. I mean,
my,
that-
Taken care of though.
yeah, my advice to you is, I've done a lot of these over the years. I'm doing 4 right now. My advice is to you is you get a lot further with honey than vinegar. So you want to be nice to these people, treat them with respect,
Mhm.
be polite, but just make them understand that this has to get cleaned up in some form or fashion. And we want to work with you to do that. And that's why we want our inspector to inspect the property so that we as a city know what exactly needs to be remedied. Like, I think for example, there was a canoe outside their property, I believe, if I remember the pictures right. If you could count how many residences in Orinoco have a boat sitting out in the yard, I mean, we're not enforcing against them. So it's kind of important. The devil's in the details a bit. You got to kind of figure out specifically what needs to be cleaned up. And then you need to notify those property owners that you expect them to do that within a time period. And then if they don't, and I think if you should continue to work with them, honey over vinegar, absolutely. But you also need to set some reasonable expectations that, to move it along. I mean, the people tonight were asking, well, when? I mean, the building we tore down on the east end of Winona, there was a fire at the property. It burned out. That was in September. And we tore it down last month in June. And it took that long. I mean, and that was moving fast. So these legal processes, you have to give notice and due process for people to give them a chance. So that's why I'm a fan of just honey over vinegar, but sending the first notice letter and then working with them. And then, that's better, I think. Then, I mean, it's up to you, do what you want, but that's my advice, I guess.
And I think
mean, you had the same stipulation in Mazeppa, the same person. Cause this is a relative up here, but she lived in Mazeppa and they fought her and fought her and fought her.
Thanks, Mike. I think Sunny's doing the right thing from the standpoint of working with the lady to get the memories out that she wants to keep. It's it's a fact that they'll probably never move back into the house, and right now it's just, that's what needs to be removed, but we don't want to take any of the memories away from her, and I think that's what we need to work to get that out of the way first.
I think the key thing that you mentioned was put a time frame around, you know, to work with.
All right.
So,
Or to start the process, and
Continue.
that
Yeah.
kind of, that's what
Yeah.
initiates that time.
Last item is budget workshop dates. So there's a couple of points from my perspective on this, the August 30th. And September, no, I'm sorry. That was last year. So this year, August 16th is a Gold Rush preparation night. Yeah, 16th, that's the Wednesday before vendors come in on Thursday morning. So we're marking lots. So that would not be a good date. And August 30th and September 6th, I'll be missing those two dates.
Well, September 6th is our OFR OFD staff meeting. We've already got that on the books. And I'm unavailable August 30th as well, and August 16th, of course, for the same reason. And I'm unavailable August 2nd.
I take it by having these 7 meetings, they're gonna be shorter meetings.
Well, that's why I was saying any 6 minimum would, I mean, if we, that's kind of keeping them shorter, kind of 2-hour increments maybe.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna give you 6 nights
No.
of my life. I'm
3.
sorry. I can't, Funny. I'm on too many committees, and I have the food shop, and I have children. So I can give you maybe 4, but I'm not. So we just either have to go a little bit longer, or the information just needs to be really, it needs to be structured so we can get through it quicker, but that it's unreasonable. It's unreasonable to do 6 extra, not 6,
That's-
6 extra. You know, none of us.
Should go a lot better this year, cause Sunny ought to have most of it for us.
Well, that's true, and we're all back,
Mhm.
so that helps. But 6 is just,
3.
and maybe you're not expecting all of us to be at each one. And that's fine if, as long as there's enough of us, if we get,
So, so does the how soon do you want to start going on these? I was just trying to get them.
I'm not
does-
available on the 2nd, nor is senior pictures are that night. I know, right?
So then we've got the 9th, correct me if I'm wrong, 23rd. And September 13th.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
What do we got, August, did you say August 9th?
The Thursday nights, August 17th, August 24th are available Thursday nights.
The only other thing is, the fire department and first responders want to make their own presentation. Am I understanding that right? Right. And we wanted to meet ahead of time so that we can show you the data from before, we can talk about additional line items. So we gotta fit that in there as well.
For the full council meeting, is that what you're mentioning?
This will be as a workshop, as one of the workshops within the council.
I look at that week of the 13th. We've got a lot of time with the city that week, if we have it that week.
What are you talking, September?
Oh, thought you said August.
August 9th.
September 13th.
Okay. No, I was saying the week of August 13th. I heard August 17th.
No, there's a list.
9th.
You got a list?
And this was,
It's on page
this
81.
is open to discussion. Last year we had 5 total. And I don't know that we need, the introduction or review of the 5-year kind of thing. You kind of got the gist of that from last year, I think. So if you just get that information in advance of a meeting,
Yes.
I think if we can get that down to 4, I'd be more happy with 4 than I would 3, but
Again, I think 4 is, but understanding that not all of us might be at every one of them, as long as there's a quorum. Well, no, we don't even need a quorum because we're not
It's a
making
workshop.
votes, it's just a workshop. And it'll be videotaped, so if we miss it, I mean, cause it is. That's
I
just
know
a
it's
lot.
not exciting for the rest of you.
Well, and it's not our job, we have jobs, or at least 2 of us do. And this is your job, it's not ours.
But I will
It is a big, important part of the process, but we just have to make it feasible for us.
in the 16th, Rylan, I
That's
apologize
gold,
if you
right?
said it. Yeah, we're doing signs that night.
We're gonna be, I'm marking up the lots.
So
We're-
like
we're-
she
we're
said, the
marking.
9th, 23rd. And
13th, I would like it a 4th one, but.
One more time with your dates there.
9th, 20.
August 9th.
13th of September.
9th,
Yep.
And they're 23rd.
not the 16th. Oh, no, of course, 23rd.
13.
And then
September 13th.
September 13th.
well, hold on, or we're having a special city council meeting. What is that about on the 5th? When's that?
That's a special council meeting to award. Page, did I say that was page 20?
Yeah, that's fine.
So why don't we just tack it on to that?
That'd be great, page 7.
We're gonna
Was
do that
to-
with the water and sewer.
To actually execute an agreement.
And that would be fast.
be-
It should be fast if we
That
all,
one should be fast.
so we just tack it onto that.
August. August 8th.
Good.
I believe that's the day after Labor.
September 5th.
Oh, yes, apologies, September
It
5th.
is the day after like.
So if we're
Instead
already,
of the 13th, we're gonna go with the 5th.
no, we're gonna do both. She wants 4. Maybe we schedule 4, we don't use them all if we don't need them.
So that would be Tuesday, September 5th, instead of the Wednesday, the 6th.
Exactly. And all of these are at 6:30?
Good for me. Um,
So 4 dates are. 9th,
Wednesday, August 9th, Wednesday, August 23rd, Tuesday, September 5th,
Wednesday the 13th.
Wednesday.
I think that, I agree with your prep, if that can all be sent to us in advance of the August 9th meeting. We got an eye appointment on the afternoon night, so I'll be dilated, I'm ready for the meeting on.
We'll be your seeing eye guide.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, Patra. And
Okay. I would just miss the 5th, September 5th meeting then. Good, okay. Got the dates, new business, night to unite. That's still planned?
Yes,
Okay.
working on finalizing the poster, but we're gonna do it obviously August 1st. Orinoco Park from 5 to 7. We will have music. I'm working on getting 2 bounce houses. We've got the Presbyterian Church, Age Friendly, obviously Gold Rush, Fire Department, First Responders, Sheriff's Department, And I have asked the Lions if they wanna come up.
I bet the VFW might too. Sharon and Ross might wanna come.
Yeah, I can ask.
We gonna do food then,
Yep.
or,
We serve food.
I was just wondering, because we were looking at the finances when you and I were talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I realized the reason I got confused was Gold Rush did donate, but it was in 2022 for 2023. That's why I wasn't finding it. So when I went back a little
thought we
bit, I
had
found it.
That's
So,
why I
You
was.
donated $2,000.
yes, yep. And then I had about 350 left from last year. So,
You cut back on some of the food.
yes.
So
I
last
figure
year it was 5 to 8, but that last hour,
It kind of died down. I think if people want to stick around for that, later, they're welcome to, but I think food, 2 hours is plenty because we
That's-
kind of
yeah.
stood around and waited, so.
I think it's 5, 7, and we need to work with the sheriff, see if they can come out.
They already
with a
did.
K-9. Yeah, good.
You have that guy that's dressed up, what was he last time, as a bear or? I think-
You guys
Yeah.
available?
Yeah, Shane.
Talk to the.
Yeah,
I know at our last meeting, we didn't know about what the plan was yet, so we'll have to do some more digging to find out if anybody's available, but. Do you have specific things you need from us or just presents?
presents, maybe help with food if we get,
Fire truck, well, fire.
truck?
Tour,
Yeah,
you know what I
fire
mean,
truck
like the
too.
kids love to climb in that.
they love the water spray.
Yeah.
If we can, I know I kind of mentioned, or you had asked about it, so I couldn't give you any information, but.
We have door prizes planned or not? Okay.
So what are you serving for food? Hot dogs and?
For the kids or-
I'm gonna see how much my bounce houses are first.
Okay.
And go from there to see what we have for food. Right now, I'm kind of planning on hot dogs and brats, but hoping for maybe some burgers if I have some extra cash.
Were you checking with on the bounce house, did you say?
There's 2 places here in town that do them, so
Oh.
I've got inquiries to both. We may get one from each.
And you're laying
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest him.
And then the new animal house people.
and can we get it on the calendar? It's not on the calendar yet,
Oh, okay.
the community calendar. Please. All right, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Approved.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Oh, you're waiting for me to make the motion?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I was in the middle of a yawn.
Approved at 9:45.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm sorry, who's second?
I left your,
Carl did.
card on my
Hey.
counter as I walked out.